All right, you're live.
Hey, welcome to the Freeborn Podcast, and it's Independence Day, one of my favorite holidays. This and Thanksgiving, the only days I actually celebrate. But I am very happy today. I have my oldest friend, all-time oldest friend, been friends since, they sent me pictures of us when we were sanding in our first house in Leon. I don't know if you even remember that.
I do remember the house.
Yeah, I don't know what my dad had us sanding.
I remember being terrified of your dad in that house.
That's hilarious.
That's all I remember. I get flashbacks.
What were you terrified of?
Your dad was a scary man. I remember one time we threw mud against the gate across the street. We just plastered the whole gate, and your dad found out and whipped us. You scrub every bit of that mud off.
Would your dad have whipped you for doing that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He probably did when I got home. But your dad had no shortage of paddles.
No shortage of paddles. No. Yeah. So we're here with Don Kincaid on Independence Day. How have you been? How's this stuff been treating you? This pandemic stuff?
I've had fewer days off this year than I have in 3 or 4 years.
Isn't that crazy?
I guess people have time and money we need to upgrade this.
That was with me. I thought when the pandemic started, I was going to have a lot of time off. I was going to be quarantined at home.
Yeah.
And up until like 2 weeks ago.
Haven't had no days off. Yeah.
No days off. Working every day.
I bought fencing. I was going to replace my fence. I bought 5 gallons of paint. I'm going to fix the siding. I'm going to get a couple of weeks and do some work. I still have all that stuff.
None of it.
No time, yeah.
So it's been good for you. It's
been good.
Yeah, you've done well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was worried that you're going to...
I have more calls than I can handle.
Wow.
I don't know if it's a stimulus money. They're like, let's upgrade something.
Oh, that's right.
Maybe.
Well, then we won't plug your business because I wouldn't want to overload.
Don't overload me.
Because my three listeners might all decide they want to call you too.
Yeah, and who knows how far they live. I try to keep my work close. I hate driving.
That's hilarious.
I used to have a boss that make me go to Austin at 6 in the morning.
4 in the morning.
Show up at 6.
Yeah, be there at 6.
It's like 7 is not early enough. You got to get up and be there by 6. We'll beat the traffic.
Yeah. Of course, the plan there in Austin was always to get there early and leave early, but we always got early and left late.
And hit traffic on the way home, yeah.
I always thought this hilarious. He always told me we start a new project. He goes, this is the one where we're going to go there early and leave early.
Sure.
I stopped saying that.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen. We never do that. We always end up getting there at 6, leaving at 5, and getting home at 8. You know?
So you look around and all the other crews are gone. You're like, what happened?
Yeah. Well, it's not like that way anymore now that he's running the show.
Oh, yeah.
Now they get there at 8 and leave at 1.
2-hour lunch.
We take a 6-hour lunch.
Yeah.
Do a couple stuff.
Yeah. That's how. So Don served in the Marines. You enlisted right after 9/11. Did you enlist because of 9/11?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Seeing planes fly into buildings really raised up the anger.
Patriotism level.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. A lot of people enlisted right after 9/11, didn't they?
Oh yeah, it overflowed. I'm pretty sure it just got so much. And for me, it was more. It was a combination of things. I was kind of directionless. I had nothing going on.
Right.
And when that happened, I was like, something just became clear. I want to go do this.
But did you go in? You went into the reserves, didn't you?
Yeah, it was interesting because I had no idea about anything. I just knew I wanted to be in the Marines, so I went in there. And recruiters, they'll tell you whatever. I don't know what they have quotas or whatever. So he said, you can go active duty and you have no idea what your job is going to be. Excuse me. And then, or you can go in the reserves and I can get you in the infantry. But you can't leave for 9 months. All of our slots are full for 9 months. So I was like, next July, that's crazy. He goes, but if you want to go recon, I can get you in there in a couple of months.
What's recon?
It's like the special forces of the Marines.
Okay.
So you go to boot camp. It's like a pipeline. You go to boot camp, go to infantry school. That's where you get your primary MOS as infantry. And then you get your secondary MOS as recon. A lot more training. So you'd go to jump school with the Army.
Wow.
Get to go to dive school with the Navy SEALs. And then once you get all that, then you're a recon Marine.
And you did that?
I was in the pipeline. I didn't go through all of it.
Oh.
And I didn't understand, in retrospect, I wish I would have really gone for it. But after infantry school, I fractured my foot. The second time I fractured my foot. So I sat there with a boot on for like months, just waiting and waiting. And then I kept hearing all these guys deploying. They're getting orders, the infantry guys. And I thought, oh man, I don't want to miss it. So I kept putting in to transfer to an infantry unit since I already had my MOS. I thought the Iraq War was going to end without me going. So once my foot healed up.
So do you wish you would have gone to recon?
Now, yeah. Because when I was in the recon, it's an RMAT. It's a Reconnaissance Marines Advanced Training Platoon. I think what happened was a bunch of infantry guys were getting sent to these schools and dropping out because of their fitness. Wasn't up to par. So they'd have you run 3 hours every day and then swim for 3 hours every day.
Wow.
And then go spend 2 weeks out on Camp Bullis doing land navigation, things like that. So once you got your fitness up to almost the max, you could do all this stuff after swimming for 3 hours, then they'd send you to the schools so you wouldn't fail out. So in retrospect, but I've never been a fitness, savage or anything like that. So
right.
I don't know.
You don't know if you...
Who knows if I would have made it.
I bet you would have.
I did fracture my foot in boot camp, then I fractured my other foot in infantry school, so.
And then you got shipped out then as a reservist, because they were sending all the reservists, weren't they? Weren't it?
Yeah.
A lot of reservists were sent?
Yeah, and that's the weird thing is that if you go reserves, you can pick your MOS. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be infantry, so that was the way to get it for sure. If you go active duty, you get a wish list. I'd like to go here, but you might just get sent to some boring base and be a chow hall guy.
Right.
So who knows?
Oh, okay.
So I went infantry, and then right when I finally got out of that platoon, they sent me to my the infantry unit, and they had just left to Cuba to guard the base.
Oh, the Guantanamo?
Yeah.
Oh.
And Jason Riggs was on that one.
Oh, okay.
So they
because you guys enlisted together, didn't you?
No.
Oh, I thought you guys.
No, he did a buddy system with Justin Fitzharris. Before it was like 7 months before September 11th, I think.
And did they try to get you to go in at that time, or not really?
I don't remember them trying to get me.
Okay.
I was doing my own thing. In fact, I was trying to get my network administrator license or certifications through Microsoft.
Oh, okay.
So I spent a whole bunch of money getting that, and then at the end, September 11th happened toward the end, and I just kind of scrapped that.
Mm-hmm. And so then they got sent to Cuba, and then what went with you?
So I wound up getting put temporarily into the weapons company in Austin.
Okay.
And we just trained every month. When they got back, then we got orders to Iraq. They spent like 10 months down there in Guantanamo.
Okay. And then you go to Iraq. But weren't you with them in Iraq? They got sent there also then later, or what?
It was weird. Jason wound up in the same 123. That's 1st Battalion, 23rd Marines, and I went to that unit. That's the closest infantry unit. Justin, he wound up with some unit in Oklahoma or something. So he deployed to Iraq earlier with a whole different unit.
Okay.
I don't really know what happened to him. I know he got sent home for medical reasons. But me and Jason did deploy to Iraq.
And then that's where you guys then teamed up, right?
Yeah.
And you guys actually... Okay.
And that's where we served the rest of the time. But
okay.
Our beginning was different. I went a different route.
Oh, see, that's weird. I thought you guys were separate. Okay.
Yeah, we wound up in the same platoon and everything.
That's odd, right? I mean, isn't there a lot of places you could have been over there?
Yeah.
That's weird you ended up together.
No, we wound up in the same battalion and company. So we're both in Bravo Company, 123. Like in Corpus, it's Charlie Company. In Houston, it's Alpha Company. Anyway, so we wound up both in Bravo Company, and we wound up both in 3rd Platoon.
Oh, okay. And then how long were you there in Iraq?
7 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it's almost a year deployment, but the first 3 is a workup in 29 Palms. So we went to California, out in the Mojave Desert, and it's...
just to get you used to it, or what?
Yeah, the training... I think the training was a lot harder than the actual combat zone.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. It's better that way than the
I
other,
think they
right?
do it that way on purpose.
Oh, okay. And were you ready? When you got to Iraq, were you ready for the environment it was going to be like?
Oh, yeah. I think after 3 months with a whole battalion of angry Marines... You want to go. You're ready. You're ready for the actual... I've been training for this for so long. You put so many months in training. you want to go put it to use. So it's like Tim Kennedy. He says he was in the Army. He's a Green Beret, Special Forces. He goes, yeah, those Marines, it's like a big pack of pit bulls on chains, and you just throw a raw piece of meat every once in a while, and they just want to go, and that's what it feels like. You're around this testosterone-filled environment, and there's fighting all the time. In our barracks in 29 Palms, we had our whole company in one barracks and a artillery, company in the other barracks. And one night, it just turned into a brawl in between. One of theirs threw a Tabasco sauce in one of the rooms of ours, and then everyone just flew out, and it's quite a brawl.
And what do the Marines do and things like that? Do they care, or do they let it slide?
Yeah, just break it up, go back to your rooms. Yeah. Bunch of bloody eyes.
And how does that do for how they get along then afterwards, for the vibe? They get old.
Yeah.
It's like releasing tension. Is that what it's kind of like?
Yeah, and it's all the time. Infantry school, I saw guys break each other's arms, just in the barracks. After training's over, you're in there, and I don't know, I was around a bunch of exceptional people. Like there was a national champion wrestler, and then there was a national champion jiu-jitsu guy, and they would go for 45 minutes trying to lock each other up. And finally, one of them had the other one in an arm bar, and he didn't tap, and so you saw it snap.
Oh.
And that guy got in trouble because you're not supposed to break yourself.
Right.
Now you're useless to the Marines. So, but yeah, that was just like that's the environment.
Who was it? Who won? The wrestler or the jiu-jitsu?
The wrestler won.
The wrestler won.
Yeah. But 45 minutes. Most people can wrestle for about 5 minutes.
I did jiu-jitsu. I did Brazilian jiu-jitsu for a while.
How'd you like it?
Oh yeah,
it's awesome, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I trained over close to your house.
Tell them about the little girl who kept beating you.
She kept choking you out.
See, I got there, right? And I'm a lot stronger than most people. And they know that, too.
Yeah.
When I was wrestling, they're like, how long have you been doing it? Because you're real strong, It's hard to get you down. I said, and then this girl, she's half my weight.
110 pounds or something?
Less than that. Tiny.
Oh, wait, half your weight? 150 pounds?
That's hilarious. I didn't see that one coming either. That was...
Go ahead.
Not that one in.
So she choked you out?
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of it, I'm worried that I'm just going to but it has nothing to do with how strong you are.
It's all skill.
It's all skill. That's
what I love about it.
It's like you think she's doing one thing, and all of a sudden she's around your neck doing another thing. You're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
It's insane. It's the craziest sport in the world. I did it they do 5-minute rounds 3 times.
Yeah.
I was at the end of my first day, I was laying on it. I thought I was gonna die. I could feel my heart coming out of my chest. I was like,
yeah,
it kills you. There. They had to tell me, he's like, do we need to take you somewhere? Because it was like
you're
the class ended at 8. I was still laying there at 9:30, just like.
Yeah.
But I have the problem with always going 120% no matter what. So.
Oh, and that's
my problem.
That's always the problem with the low belt person. They're so intense and no skill. They wear themselves out, and someone experienced is just going to use technique and not wear themselves out.
So do you do jiu-jitsu?
No, I wish I could. I just don't have time. Yeah. I have my kid, Chase. I put him in jiu-jitsu.
Oh.
Because, in each kid, you got to know your kid. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that would help him out a little bit. He went to middle school and started getting pantsed, and kind of intimidated by their kids. And I said, let's get you in jiu-jitsu. And
instead of just buying them suspenders.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was suspenders or jiu-jitsu. Good choice.
Yeah. He loves it too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is he good at it?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay. How long has he been doing it?
6 months. But yeah, I like going and watching him because it makes me, I want to jump in.
I've been wanting to do it. I've been wanting to get into it.
It's, so in the Marines, we did Marine Corps martial arts 3 times a week, 1 hour, and you would just practice on each other.
And what is that? Like jiu-jitsu? Or
it's like a mix. It's like they took a bunch of martial arts and mixed it together for what would be best for a combat platoon. Okay. So hand-to-hand combat type of stuff. But a lot of it's jiu-jitsu. It's figuring out how to choke somebody. Not an air choke, but a blood choke.
Yes.
And arm bars, wrist manipulation, joint manipulation, all that kind of stuff. And we'd practice on each other over and over and over. So you get real comfortable with someone holding onto your neck. or trying to tap you on your legs. Or
Yeah, you get in positions you never want to be in with another person.
Yeah.
I had this big old dude on top of me in a place I did not want him.
Yeah.
And it's
Was
super
it with a gi?
uncomfortable. Oh yeah, and the gi.
Some of those older guys with gis don't like to wear any undershirt.
Yeah.
So you got a big hairy chest on you. Get off. Might be part of the strategy, but
Yeah.
but
See, I wrestled when I was a kid. I wrestled as a kid. I was actually pretty good at it, even though I never trained or knew anything.
Right.
I think it was because at that age I was so much stronger, and
Sure.
it was real young. So, I would win.
well, yeah, and your body is the style is perfect
Yeah,
for wrestling.
yeah.
You're broad and short.
Yeah, no legs and
Yeah.
all for torso.
Short center of gravity. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. I wrestled in some, and like I went. I don't remember now. I was so young. I don't remember, but it was like, I think it was state championship, and I beat I beat the main guy.
Yeah, wrestlers are those tough guys.
Yeah.
we had another guy once we were in Iraq. There was a guy who was a wrestler, and another guy that was jiu-jitsu, and they were both 230 pounds, just real big dudes. And they wrestled so long, and one of them, they were and cracked ribs. Just you could hear it. You heard it pop. Oh. It was just like, so we were all taking bets and stuff. Who's going to win? Because they would talk trash all the time. But that was the environment. People just
So
it was a regular release for just
because everyone's all hopped up, ready to go somewhere, right?
adrenaline and testosterone, and I mean you're just around 1,000 guys all the time, training constantly, physical, and it's always yelling and you need a
And
need
then
something physical.
you're also doing tactical training.
Yeah, all the time. Well, and that's what's cool about the infantry is it's not just a job. Like if you go into the military, most like 90% of the military, it's just a job. You go do a job, and which is very good, whatever.
You mean like work on a tank or
It's a daily job,
fix 'em.
and that's what you do, and you do it well. I respect that job, but if you want to do, it's training all the time in the infantry. You'll spend 1.5 years in the field training in different urban environments, in the desert, in the jungle, and you'll go do cold weather training, and all for that one time that you get to go to combat.
And that's all you're working on. That's your
all you
job.
do.
Is just
Every
being ready
day
for combat.
You're out in the field for 2 weeks at a time. You're in the mountains learning how to use your compass. They'll give you a point 5 kilometers away, and you got to find it. A specific little box in the woods, and if you don't find it, then you're just out there. You figure out real quick who's not good at land nav.
I would be wandering around.
Yeah, I love
I'd be like
land
that
nav.
Japanese soldier who came
30
down
years
like
later.
30 years later.
Because they told me not to stop.
It'd be me. I just couldn't find it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I loved land nav. We did it at Quantico for a week or two, and I mean, I ran into water moccasins and all kinds of weird stuff out there, and it's you and another guy, you and your buddy.
Do you have any way of radioing in if you get in trouble?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to, last.
Like that alone show?
Yeah.
You don't tap out until you're
Yeah.
done.
No, if you did that and you didn't really need it, then you're going to be in trouble.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, the training is what it's all worth. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's like, and all this police stuff. You hear all this stuff about police, and you feel bad because in the military, like the infantry, you train for years for that one time you get to go. And then that's all you've been doing. It's all second nature. You got rid of all the emotions in your decisions, and you know exactly what your job is. You've done it 100 times or 1,000 times. I feel bad for cops because they have such a short amount of training, and then they see 15 terrible situations every day that they may never have seen,
I was listening to, I think it was Rogan saying how, was it Rogan? Who was he interviewing?
Jocko Willink.
Yes, you saw that?
I love Jocko, yeah.
I do too.
Have you listened to his podcasts?
I do listen to him. Yeah, I don't listen to all of them, but
Yeah.
I do like them.
His leadership podcasts are
Yeah.
awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Where he was saying that he thinks that cops should be training a whole lot more than they are now.
he said he thought 20% of the time. So
20%.
1 day training, 4 days on the job.
Yeah.
Every week. I think so too, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they can do that now that they're defunding them. They'll have all this money to.
Yeah. Yeah, why not give them more money and more time? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
It's a terrible job. I couldn't do it. I'd probably be in jail in the first year
Yeah.
of doing if I was a cop, You know,
That's what
if you have anger issues,
Yeah, that's what always amazed me about Albert. That is how well he did it for so long.
Some people-
25 years,
I don't know how they do it.
and did a good job as far as I can tell. And even the people he arrested will like him.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah. Some people have a personality that just you can handle people just yelling at you all the time or throwing things at you or trying to hide everything all the time, being sneaky.
It's like dealing with a 5-year-old all day long.
Or 10 5-year-olds.
But like 5 times bigger.
Yeah,
like a dangerous 5-year-old.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah,
There's
crazy.
a couple of jobs that I think you'd need a very specific personality, like a nurse or a police officer. I couldn't do that. I could be a firefighter, I think.
Yeah.
Everyone loves you.
Yeah, you're the hero.
You're the hero all the
always
time.
hero. Even when you're just getting a cat out of the tree, you're a hero.
Yeah, and you're sitting in the firehouse most of the time. You're just working out, and people love you, and they want to buy a calendar with you on it.
Well, I don't know of all of them, but
Maybe not all.
well, that's the problem with the police. If they would get people that would look better on calendars, maybe they would.
And I know a lot of cops that really criticize other police officers, saying, "Why are you so out of shape?"
Well, it's terrible. I mean,
Yeah.
Albert always stayed in pretty good shape, actually.
Right.
I mean, he's one of those guys that, he doesn't look it. He's kind of big.
Right.
But, he runs, he does martial arts, he
Right.
rides horses, he runs a ranch.
Well,
I
you
mean,
can tell how he carries himself.
Yeah,
It's,
he jokes around, but he's actually in really good shape.
Right.
For as far as for doing the job, he's in good.
Sure.
He's not an Olympic runner, but
yeah, but as long as you got your cardio and
yeah, but he's actually but he has he has friends that I've gone to meet that are just, you wonder how they fit in the squad car.
well, and
I
that's
mean, they're huge.
and that's also not very
That's
good
not-
for your job. If your first instinct is, this guy's going to beat me up, I got to pull my gun, that's probably not a good step.
Yeah.
So it should be a little more personal accountability too, but it's the same and even in the infantry, there's 10% of the guys who just are there for the wrong reasons. They don't care. They wanted the college degree. I don't know. I was always amazed. These guys, after September 11th, would join up in the infantry. And then when you're in Iraq, they're like, complaining the whole time. I didn't want to do this. I just wanted the free college. I'm like, why'd you? We're in post 9/11. What are you thinking?
What do you think was going to happen?
Yeah. But that's a small percentage of them.
Most of the ones there were there for the patriotism of it.
Yeah.
When you were in.
Yeah, and it's funny. It attracts, especially the Marine infantry. I don't know about any of the other branches, but it attracts a specific type of person. There's a kind of a half psycho, half good personality in there. I don't know what that says about me.
Do you think they filter for that? Do you think they sort for that?
I don't think so. I think it attracts a certain personality type that wants to, that likes to fight, or could have been a mafioso gangster, or go to the military. That type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right on the razor's edge.
Yeah, and it's like I like that analogy of a sheepdog, because you have to have the ability to be violent, but you have to also have the ability to be normal and not hurt the sheep.
Right.
So I always like that analogy.
So when you get to Iraq, what's that like? What was it like when you got there? Was it
It was
expected, or was it jolting?
It was a weird deployment. So we're reserves. We didn't expect to do much. So our battalion, when we got there, we fly into Kuwait.
So you thought the what do they call when you're not reserve?
Active duty.
You thought the active duty would be doing most
Right.
of it.
Yeah, and I think most active duty look at the reservists like, they're just, they're the junior varsity or whatever.
Right.
And that's fine.
Right.
But when we showed up, Alpha Company went to Syria, and they stayed there on the border of, they were in Iraq, but on the border.
Okay.
And they guarded a base the whole time. Charlie Company, which is from Corpus, they all stayed at Fob Heat, which is a terrible little place. It was a forward operating base. Mm-hmm. It's like put together with sandbags and a few buildings, and that's it. They lived there the whole 7 months, just ran patrols around that area.
Like intense.
Not even intense.
Just out in the open.
Just a concrete building.
Oh.
And they would have food brought to them once a week. A truck might come by, like to sell them cigarettes and candy or whatever they wanted to buy with their little money. But they ran their patrols there for 7 months. We went, and we were supposed to be on Al-Assad Air Base, the main air base where we still have people. Mm-hmm. The one that Iran bombed recently.
Okay.
So we were supposed to guard that. That's what you have to know that I was an E3. I was very low rank. So what I know might not be accurate.
Right.
I didn't really know it. But we all thought we were guarding the base. We're going to be on post, guarding the entrances. This is our job for 7 months. Well, like 2 weeks in, and it was when we got there, they put us in cans. It's like 5x10 storage boxes, but it had a window unit. So we were like, air conditioning, great. We're going to be living here for 7 months. It's going to be easy deployment. But 2 weeks in, we got into a firefight. We went, first platoon goes out, and they go to a city, Octurba, and they get ambushed. So we're all back on base just, playing cards or whatever, playing spades. And they say, hey, gear up, we're going down to Octurba. First platoon is, they've been surrounded and they're in a firefight. So we get on trucks. They're 7-ton trucks, and they have the row of seats in the middle, and everyone faces outboard, and you're just cruising. You're out in the desert, going through towns, and kids are waving, and then it was like a wake up call because next thing you know, we have 2 helicopters going with us, right? We're like, that's kind of cool, and then next thing you know, 1 minute we're waving at these kids, and next thing you know, these choppers start opening up, like just they open up all their weapons. And you're seeing these shells falling. They're just lighting up the whole wooded area on the Euphrates River. We're like, okay, so this is it. We jump off, and we're in the middle of a firefight. We're right there. They were softening the target for us to come in, and we were there for a week. And we got our combat action ribbon like 2 weeks in. So, yeah, we just sat on the Euphrates River for a whole week guarding this bridge. We got rid of the insurgents that had attacked first platoon. Had a couple Purple Hearts that first engagement. So
wow,
that was like a wake up call. Like, okay, so this is
what
real.
did that feel like when it first started? Was it?
It was nuts. We'd never seen anything for real. I mean, there was guys bleeding, shrapnel hitting, palm trees falling over. Rockets getting fired. We had after our mission, we came back to base, and we had the fighter jet send us video. When he attacked, we called for fire. He shot across the river into the town that was across the river. And you'd see the video of the missile coming in and just blowing up the little center where they were hiding. So,
was the video from the missile itself or from the plane?
From the plane.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really cool. Thermal imaging, that kind of stuff.
So oh, wow.
Yeah. But that was like, okay, so we're not guarding the base. We're going for real.
Wow.
So after that, I think everyone woke up and started.
So I've always wondered. So when that first starts, it's the first combat you've seen, right?
Yeah.
Does it feel anything like Saving Private Ryan or any of those war movies that try to be more accurate? I mean, what does that compare to?
I think the adrenaline takes over, and all that training you've been doing kicks in, and you're not really thinking anymore. You're a robot doing your job, and everyone's yelling and commands, and hey, we're going over here, first platoon, first squad, second squad, whatever. And that's when good leadership is very important. We had a great platoon commander. He knew tactics. He was very good.
Wow. So you don't get all overwhelmed by is it loud?
Yeah, real loud. But to me, I remember just zoning in. It was almost like you're closing out the sounds, and you're focusing on what do I need to do. It turned out I didn't plan it this way, but I was a radio operator for my platoon. So I wound up being the radio guy by accident. I didn't get trained on radios, but, in the workup, I wound up being a radio guy. So
right.
My whole job, the entire deployment, was get communications up and make sure everything is ready. So I got to know the radios real well, and every time we go in somewhere, I focused on getting my comms up. Make sure everything's working. I call for fire if he tells me to call for fire. So that's pretty much my whole focus. Was I didn't really worry about what was going around me. Sometimes I was negative, like in Fallujah.
What does that mean? You were negative?
It was negative in the sense that I was focused so hard that when we first went into Fallujah the night before the operation, the invasion.
So you were in Fallujah in the main operation?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That was months later.
Right.
But just in this instance, we take over a house, and I go up to the roof to set up comms, and I'm walking around trying to get a signal, and there's a sniper team up there with me. They're crawling. I'm not paying attention. I'm hearing bricks shatter behind me. I'm like, what is that sound? I look, and there's little bullets hitting the bricks right behind me. And the sniper's like, you should probably get down. I was, I wasn't paying. I'm focused so hard on trying to get the radio up. And I'm missing the whole, I'm not seeing bullets flying and hitting the bricks right behind me. So sometimes the blinders are not good. But
not good, yeah.
That's my mind. I guess I focus on, I got to get my job done. I don't want to fail.
And when you were there, was everyone kind of focused like that? Was that pretty common?
Well, it depends. Like everyone has a job. So there's saw gunners, which is a machine gun. Mm-hmm. And those guys always know when we get into a zone, saw gunners are going to lay down on an open avenue, and they're going to be the main suppression. So they lay down behind their weapon in a tactical spot, and that's what they're just looking for any enemy. So each person has their job. Each fire team has, where they're supposed to go. My job was always on the radio, so I was always looking for a spot to set up.
Man.
So I don't know what their experience was, but me, I was always focused like that. And I thought, man, if I mess up and we can't communicate, then we're in trouble.
That'd be huge.
Because blue on blue is a big problem. Friendly fire.
Yeah.
So if you're not careful, we got into a couple of those situations at night.
Where you think you're fighting the enemy?
Yeah.
And you're not?
Yeah, we got into at night, we got into a firefight, and you could see the tracer rounds. Every 5 or 6 bullets, you put a tracer in there, and you could see where they're coming from. And we realized we're fighting other Americans. And I had to get on the radio and figure out who to, hey, we're here, it's friendly. So that's a scary situation.
That is scary.
Yeah, because you don't want to stop shooting.
Well, yeah,
because then they're going to kill you. So you're still suppressing fire against them. But hey, man, we're Americans. This is Bravo Company. You're trying to communicate, obviously in radio language, but
right.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Man, and then when you're in Fallujah, how did that go down? What was that like?
That was weird because after we would run missions out of Al-Assad for a while, or any area around. We'd go do high-value target, go grab them at night. Intel guys on the base would get intel from other prisoners, and then they'd say, hey, go, we have a high-value target that's setting up road bombs. He's right in this house. So we'd go at midnight and grab him, pop into the house and snatch him up. We were doing that for a while, and then they said, look, you are getting detached. There's going to be an invasion of Fallujah. Bravo Company's going. So we got detached from our battalion and got attached to the Army 2nd Infantry Division, which is a huge infantry division. So we went to Fallujah, and we were completely detached from the rest of our battalion. Kind of lucky in my mind.
So how many of you were there?
Our company?
Yeah, that went to Fallujah.
A few hundred.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you join up with anyone else, or was it just you guys?
It was us, but we were attached to 2nd Infantry Division, so whatever they needed us to do, we did that.
Okay.
I think they had invaded Fallujah in March of the same year, and something went wrong, or it wasn't successful for whatever reason. So in November of that year, when we were there, sorry, my allergies have been bad. So in November, we're going to re-invade, but they planned it really well from all sides. We were on the west side of the Euphrates, coming in from that side. So it's funny, all these towns are on the Euphrates. Ramadi, Fallujah, Baghdad, they're all these little towns are on the Euphrates. So we spent a lot of time on the Euphrates. So yeah, Fallujah was, we got detached. We're all excited. Yeah, Fallujah, we heard about it because every roadside bomb, every insurgent, everyone, all the intel said they're coming from Fallujah and they're spreading out, doing all their work and then coming back.
So that was like a main center for them.
Yeah. And it switched when you hear Jocko Willink, he's always talking about Ramadi. So after Fallujah, I think all of it centered in Ramadi, snipers and bomb makers and all that kind of stuff. But when we were there, it was Fallujah. And it was called Operation Phantom Fury. So
yeah,
it was pretty impressive because you saw, I was listening to the communications from the guys coming from the north, from 1-8 Marines, and from the east, and the Army from the south. And I don't know exactly how they planned it, but it worked out really. It was very efficient.
It was very effective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we dropped flyers. The Americans dropped flyers, and they're saying, hey, if you should get your family out of town.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We had already set up our position, so bad guys weren't going anywhere, but they told...
Were you guys checking everyone leaving, or did anyone leave?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people left. So I don't know. But yeah, we did that a lot. We would, even if we go take over someone's house for a mission, say, look, if you have somewhere else to stay, go. We're going to be in here. We're not going to mess anything up, but we do need this spot. And some of them would stay and we'd hang out with them. They'd give us chai tea and we'd eat their food, and super nice people.
Really?
And usually they got money for it.
Oh, okay. They were compensated.
Yeah.
And then how was the response of the average people in Iraq to you?
Average people, I'd say 90% of them were awesome. Just sweet people. Just like, it reminded me of Mexico. They were just kind of smaller village people. They had farm animals. Whatever they did to make their money. And they were mostly nice people, and they would, oh, yes, thank you. And
were they glad you guys were there?
yeah, they were very oppressed. They would tell us that we weren't allowed to have a cell phone before when Saddam Hussein was in. We weren't allowed to have TV. They had all these rules.
Right.
And most of them were real nice and real happy. It's the other 10%, yeah.
And how many of those were not from Iraq? The ones you guys are?
I think a lot.
Think they were from Iran, or where are they from?
I think that's, yeah. People would say, oh, we can go fight over there, and they'd come in. Like, we got reports one time that there was 15 Chechnyan snipers in an apartment building. So, hey, 3rd Platoon, you are going out. So we went up there and cleared that thing at midnight. A 5 or 6 story building. Just.
Were they there?
No, didn't find them. Door to door, kicked in every door. Didn't find any snipers. Intel was bad. A lot of bad intel. So.
Right.
But.
And then when you have bad intel, what's the response of the people like in that building? Are they upset at you guys or not?
I think they're more scared. They don't know what's going on.
Right.
But if we hear there's 15 snipers and they're attacking people on the side of the road or whatever, taking shots, we got to go in and clear it.
Right.
And I mean, nobody ever got hurt in these missions. We didn't hurt anybody, but the high intensity, because we think there's someone in there with with machine guns.
So did you guys actually kick the door down, or did you actually knock?
No. It was. If it's not unlocked, we're knocking it down. We don't want them to surprise us. So.
Right.
And we had a couple of guys that were huge and just ridiculous strength. They just kind of lean on the door.
Was that Jason most of the time?
Bigger than Jason, yeah.
Bigger than Jason.
Yeah. Yeah, some of these guys were ridiculously strong. They're like big oxes. Just push the door open and you're in.
So. Wow. And did you go like on those kind of things also? Were you on all those?
I went on a lot of them because I was a radio guy. So even if it was a 1-squad mission, like only 1st squad's going to go do this thing, they need a radio guy. So I was there. I got to go with a lot of different people. So my experience is a little different than most of the guys there. It's like I got to sit in on the meetings for planning. So I could take notes on what units on the north, who's coming from this side, who I need to communicate with. I need to know who to call for fire. So if I call for mortar rounds, something like that, or artillery or something like that, I need to know everybody's call sign. I need to know who I'm talking to. So I was in on the planning for most of these missions.
So how did you get into radio? You said it was kind of accidental. How did
it was
that
weird.
happen?
We were training in 29 Palms, and we were out in this urban warfare training. It's like buildings. It's just set up for training, just concrete buildings. And platoon commander said, I need someone to carry a radio. And I'm like, okay, I'll carry it. And that made me the radio man for the rest of the deployment.
I have a friend who's I don't know if you know him, Brett.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, his dad was in the military. I forget if he was in what branch, maybe Air Force. Anyways.
Air Force.
Air Force? Okay. His dad's in the Air Force. And he was just enlisted.
Yeah.
And they come out and they said, I need a carpenter. Well, his name is Carpenter. Yeah. So that was his job for the rest of the time. He was the carpenter.
He thought they were asking for
So he doesn't know anything about carpentry.
He learned real quick. Yeah.
They said that was his job. He became the carpenter because they say, I need a carpenter, and his name was Carpenter.
You volunteer once, you're done, yeah. Yeah, and most guys knew that. I guess I didn't hear you're not supposed to just volunteer for things.
No.
Keep quiet. But it worked out. I learned everything I could about the radios. Real cool system. It's a frequency hop system, so hops 10,000 frequencies per minute.
Try to keep it from being intercepted.
Right, and then every few days you'd reset all the codes. Everyone across the whole area would get the same codes. Set all your Zulu time, so it's all exactly timed. And so, but that was my whole job. I just worried about making sure the radios were up all the time. So that was pretty interesting.
Wow. And how long did it take you guys to get through Fallujah? How long did that last?
Close to 30 days.
Of actual fighting?
Yeah. So I think we went in November 6th, my company. We went in to set up our position that night. And I remember being there more than 3 weeks, maybe less than 4, somewhere around there. I just, like, I like to joke with Courtney, say, I'm not worried about it. I went 25 days without a shower before, so, And that was true. Yeah, we spent the whole time doing that mission. So.
And so you guys didn't have time for like showering or anything, or what?
Everyday missions, yeah.
Wow.
And what we did is we took up a position and we took over the Sheikh's compound. Real rich guy, obviously. Everything's coated in gold, his whole house, his mansion. And it's a walled compound, 10-foot walls or whatever. And so we just set up that as this is our center, and we'd run missions out of there. So sometimes our turn would come back, we'd get a little R&R in that compound, but then back out. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
And so then they were just taking the city like block by block. Is that what they were doing?
Yeah, and some of the units, like I think it was 3-1, the 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, they really took heavy casualties. I only know that because they had a documentary on the Marines in Fallujah, and so I watched it, and it turns out one of the guys I was in boot camp with was in 3-1. He was now a platoon sergeant, and it was real interesting seeing him. And he's real memorable because when I was in boot camp, this guy was a prior Army, and he was a sergeant and a sniper in the Army. And then he came to boot camp, so he's an older guy. His name was Cuts the Rope. He's a Native American guy, and his first name was Catcher, Cuts the Rope.
Oh, wow.
And he had a big burn mark right here. And he had his clan tattoo on his neck. And when he wanted to get in the Marines, he took a spoon on fire and that was my bunkmate.
Oh, shoot.
And so I saw him in the documentary, and he was talking about, you could tell it had taken a toll on him. He lost guys. And I was like, oh, man, that's crazy. If I would have gone his direction, I would have been in 3-1, and it would have been a real mess. Those guys took a lot of casualties. They did a lot of good work, but yeah.
But they took a lot for it.
A lot.
And how did you guys do as far as casualties?
It was amazing. We didn't lose anybody. We had like 40 Purple Hearts, and people got injured, but it's mostly indirect fire. It was mortars and IEDs and things like
right.
that. Firefights didn't really scare us. It was the mortar rounds. We had done a mission. This is just an example. We'd done a mission. We come back to the compound, the Sheikh's house, and me and 2 of my buddies are standing there taking off our pack. Trying to get a little air, just sit. Because we in infantry, we'd walk 10 miles, do our mission, then come back, full gear. So we get there, we take our packs off, and we start drinking water, and we're joking a little bit. And all you wouldn't hear anything, but and you knew it was close. You just hear the whistling. And that thing landed about 10 meters from us, and he's bleeding out of his face. This friend of mine is bleeding out of his leg. I got nothing. So those kind of situations were way scarier. You learn to like just hit the deck when you hear that whistle. So have no idea where it's going or where it's coming from, but you hear it. It's coming very close. So. And
you didn't get hit, and the 2 next stand. How close were they to you?
As close as us.
Wow.
Man, we call that the $1 million injury because neither one of them wasn't deadly. But
yeah.
Your ears are ringing, and that's where the movies kind of get it good. It's like slow motion. You can't hear anything. Everyone's running, getting cover. But that kind of stuff was much more scary than a firefight. To us, anyway. We didn't really...
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you have any experience with IEDs over there yourself, like personally, or not?
No. One of our first missions after we were tasked with guarding an ammo dump called Dulab. And we would stay out there for 6 days rotation. Our platoon would do one, and we'd go around this 10-acre or 20-acre, I don't know how big it was, but it was a dump. It had artillery shells. It had all kinds of missiles and rockets, and it was Saddam Hussein's ammo. Mm-hmm. So we were guarding it to make sure the bad guys couldn't come get it, the insurgents. So we stayed out there for 6 days, and then when we rotated out, the next platoon came in. And you can hear this guy's story on Jocko. He got interviewed by Jocko. His name is Jake Schick.
Okay.
So he goes around, I think it was the first, after we got relieved, he goes around and someone had set a triple stacked IED in the moon dust, in the real light dust. Blew his Humvee up. He lost a leg, lost an arm. Well, a lot of skin was just rolled back. He got really messed up. And he was our first casualty, and it was an IED. He went through like 50 surgeries.
And you were there when that happened?
No, his platoon rotated mine out.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So it was like the next day after we got...
Oh.
Yeah, we left Dulab, went back to the base for our time to shower and all that, and they got blown up. And that really cemented my company after that, because Schick was the first one. He had to get flown out. He was in bad shape. So his story is real interesting. I don't know if you've seen the group 22 Kill.
I haven't. What is it?
So it's because, suicide, there's 22 veterans a day and all that.
Okay, I've heard of that. Yes.
So 22 Kill, they did 22 push-ups. It's a challenge.
Yes, I have heard of that.
So Jacob Schick, he went through a couple of hard years after that, surgeries and all kinds of stuff. But then he came out of it, and he's been a real big voice for helping veterans that are suicidal and.
Because was he suicidal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a real rough time. Medications, but he came out of it in a very positive way. So now, he's almost famous. He was in that movie American Sniper. He's getting interviewed by Jocko, and he's all over the place. He's meeting the president, but he's doing a lot of good stuff. He's got this organization called 22 Kill, and he's always raising money so he can help.
And what do you think is the main problem with this suicide dilemma, or the suicide epidemic in the military? Is it
PTSD,
how many of them is it?
Yeah, it takes, obviously some people are affected much more, but I think, yes, especially if you've had traumatic brain injuries, like one of my guys, I won't name names and all that, but he got blown up, fractured his skull, all that stuff. We didn't lose anybody there, but we've lost more people since they got back
from suicide.
Yeah. So, and I think you get used to that high intensity, purpose. I have a purpose, we're doing something good. And you come home and it's like everyone's yelling about whatever, nonsense.
Things that seem stupid
things. Once you've seen that level of what life is, what's important, and then you see, I got to go get the grocery store today now, or, I got to go wait tables.
Yeah.
It's I guess it's depressing for a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And I think, Jocko and other guys that are taking leadership, they say, no, it's important to get a mission. Get home and find a mission, Immerse yourself into something good. So.
Oh, man, that would be difficult.
Yeah. I think, yes.
Was it hard for you?
No, I didn't really. My problems were different. I went through about 5 years of anger and sleep. I went 3 weeks without sleeping.
Was it anger at something specific, or just angry?
You're like, I went back to waiting tables, right? And you're just around these people that complain about everything, and you're just and you're used to working with elite, people who are mission oriented, tough, and now you're working around, and you're working around these just babies everywhere, just crying about every little nonsense, and it's hard to deal. Going back to civilian life is a bit of a transition.
Does the military provide any type of transition help to cope with that, or you just get dumped back over there?
No, they do what they can. I mean, they sent us when we first got back. We weren't allowed to just go home right away. We had to do like a month of get nice classes. You're going back to your families. You can't just start slapping people and what you've been doing. You got to change. And then the VAs, they are very welcoming. Like, you need to see a psychiatrist, come talk. So they do what they can. I mean, they give a lot of medication. That's what they do. So
yeah,
I tried a few of those things, but I didn't like. Maybe I just didn't get the right chemical combination, but they all made me feel terrible. So some people it really helps, the antidepressants and things like that. But I think you have to get the right compound, or it's going to do the opposite.
Yes.
So if you get a good psychiatrist, maybe they know what they're doing. But I think the hardest thing is, it's probably better just to figure out a way to deal with your anger or whatever separately. But the VA, they do provide a lot, and they've gotten better. It used to be real bad.
And with you, did it just go away, or did you figure out what to do about it?
Yeah, you kind of learn. For me, I needed to get out of big crowds. Like the first couple of years when I was waiting tables, people would have a birthday and have balloons, and if a balloon popped, I would hit the deck and look real stupid. Just scared me. You hear that loud noise.
Just a reflex.
Yeah, and it's just and then my hardest thing has always been sleep. So I can be dead tired, and then at night they call it hyper alertness. You're awake. You hear everything, and I still deal with that. But I think I've working my job now is much easier for me to control my temper because It's just me and whoever I choose to work with.
Right.
And if I choose to do work for people, that's fine. I got to choose it. Right. Working with you, I had a few times where I thought I was gonna rip someone's head off. Like at the convention center, that guy, I'm gonna wind up hurting this dude. He's in my face.
Yeah.
And so that was a little harder. So I've kind of like adjusted my surroundings to make it less anxious. Right. So,
yeah.
So there are advantages to doing that.
Man. And so how was it as far as like being a Christian and being over it and being in war, being in that environment and stuff? Did that present any dilemma to you as far as that, or?
No, not at all. I mean, if we were doing stuff, like they portray the Vietnam War, like people were just, I don't think it's a true portrayal necessarily, but if it was like that, then I would, had a problem with it. But I thought we would go out of our way to chain ourselves. We had rules of engagement that were ridiculous. They were dangerous for us.
Well, like Fallujah, going house to house, they could have just bombed the place, couldn't they have?
Us?
Theoretically.
We basically did for the first week. That was there was explosions. The whole city was smoking. You had choppers, and that's how we softened it. And then people went door to door. And I think I don't remember the numbers, but I think they wound up taking out like 3,000 insurgents in Fallujah. So, but yeah, all the people that we dealt with were very happy to have us there. They've been oppressed. These are oppressed people, and you could tell they wanted a little more freedom.
John wants to know that when you would stay in their houses, John Castillo.
Yeah.
That if you were ever worried that they poisoned the food y'all were eating.
No, I never worried about that. A lot of guys wouldn't eat the food. It's like when they say don't drink the water in Mexico. Yeah. They told us the same thing about the food over there. I never worried about it. I used to drink the water in Mexico, so I was fine with it. No, we weren't ever worried about that. We were more worried about people who would tell us intel, and then next thing you know, they're on the other side shooting at us, We would deal with that sometimes. These guys would turn, they'd act all friendly around us. Oh, yeah. And the next thing you know, we'd see them the next day on the other end of a firefight. So, no, I never worried about the food.
How was the food?
It was good. I liked it. It's a totally different type of food. You think you've tried everything, but no, Middle Eastern food is very interesting.
How much is it like Pasha and those? Have you ever been to those places? Oh, so you don't know. I go to these Middle Eastern restaurants, but I don't know if it's like the Chinese food here. It's okay. Like it's Tex Chinese.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Yeah, well, it's like Mexican food. The food I ate when I was in Mexico is totally different than any Mexican food you can get here.
Yes.
So, I don't even know how to describe real Mexican food.
Yeah.
It's not the same 10 ingredients that we use here.
Yeah, exactly. That's why whenever I get Chinese food in Mexico, it always tastes just like a guisado. They call it a guisado. You want a guisado?
Does this stir fry have beans in it?
They just put soy sauce in whatever they were making.
Here's your burrito with soy sauce.
Yes. They just mix soy sauce in with whatever they normally would make, and they call that Chinese food. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. And so you didn't have any
as far as the Christian problem, we had a chaplain. He's much less dogmatic than what we're used to.
Yeah.
But he's there for a specific purpose. He's an encourager. He's, if you need to talk to somebody, you go to the chaplain. And he held services. We had Lord's Supper out in the middle of the desert. So,
oh, cool.
So yeah, and I had a Bible. Jason, a lot of people had their Bible and carried it around with us. So, we carried everything with us everywhere. So we had all of our belongings everywhere we went.
So how much weight are you carrying?
I carried a lot of weight. When we were at the Sheikh's house, I weighed over the 300-pound mark with my pack on. So it stops at 300.
And how much did you weigh?
165.
Wow.
So, but everyone carried about 2 gallons of water. You carry all your gear. The flak jacket and the sappy plates that are inside, all that stuff is at least 30 pounds. And then, you got your 7 magazines with 30 rounds each, and you got everything. Your pack, water. I had batteries. I had the big Fox, the big Charlie radio with 4 or 5 extra big block batteries. Carried everything. Yeah. So it was a lot of weight all the time.
Wow. Did you get used to carrying that around, or?
Oh yeah, Jenny gave me a hard time when I moved back. She goes, "Why are your legs so big and your top is so small?" It was very unbalanced. So I wasn't at a gym. If you see guys coming back from war that are in really good shape, they didn't leave the wire. They were in the gym all the time.
So if they're proportional, it means they didn't see any combat.
They weren't out. Yeah, they weren't outside the wire. They were having a little bit of fun, and that's fine. That's the problem I have usually is these guys come back with all these war stories. Their service is great. They did a great job of what they had to do, but they come back and tell all these stories, and it's like, I know you're lying. Most everybody who has been there knows you're lying, but if you want to tell your family all these stories, that's fine. But yeah, we can tell the difference.
Wow.
But yeah, if someone comes home with big legs and
so now I know what to look for.
And they've shrunk down on top. Like all the guys that were really jacked when we went, most of them lost 20, 30 pounds of muscle on the way back. Because, you're out 6 days on a mission, and then you rotate back for a shower for 1 day or two, and you go back out. So we spent most of our time in the cities or in the little towns and doing missions.
And then what are you, if you're not eating, if you don't eat the food there, what are you eating? The MREs or what?
All MREs, yeah. Or tray rats, which is basically just a big MRE for multiple people. So yeah, the chow hall was great when we go back on base. Like Al Assad chow hall was awesome. They had pizza and wings, and they had a TV in the main area. So we were like, oh, we haven't seen TV in a long time, even though it was like European dance videos. That's the type of TV we got to watch.
It reminds me of going to eat tacos in Mexico. They always have the weirdest stuff playing in there.
Yeah,
and then, my dad, he's always fascinated with it.
Like, why is the whole Michael Jackson collection playing? Yes. At full blast?
It's always the craziest stuff.
Yeah.
Well, here, what's always amazes me at restaurants here, they always put the Food Network on. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that is weird.
It is strange.
Yeah.
It's like either that's confidence, right? Or it's stupidity, because it's like you're looking at your food and then you're looking at that food and you're like,
yeah, this doesn't compare.
I don't know if I would put that up there. Right?
Yeah, it better be a fine dining place.
Yeah, it'd be like inviting a bunch of models to your wedding, right? Just the audience. And
let's leave the sports on.
It's crazy what they do here. It's a lot of them are those Chinese restaurants. They always do that. They have like the Food Network going. I guess they figure you'd want to watch about food if you're eating food.
They go, well, there's never Chinese food on the Food Network. We're fine.
That's true. And then they're like, it's themed.
Yeah.
They're theming their TV to it. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
So when you went in as a reservist, I thought I heard that the reservists didn't get the full benefits coming out that the active duty.
No.
Even though you were in combat.
Right.
I thought they cut your time a little short. If you'd stayed longer, you would have.
Yeah. Yeah, I got like 2 weeks short of a year on my...
And if you'd gotten the year, what would have happened?
I would have had more benefits. And I didn't really join for that reason. It would have been nice. But I got the VA loan, so I got a house where I would not have been able to get a house. So I'm real grateful for that. Like Mike Pemberton, those guys in that era did not get the VA loan. No, they didn't get the GI Bill.
Yeah.
I got a percentage of the GI Bill. But yeah, I did have a roommate. And he had never served, but he had a full GI Bill because of his dad. I was always like, I did 150 combat missions, and he's getting full school covered, and I'm getting 40% or whatever.
Yeah, see, I always thought that was kind of a raw deal for the reservists.
It was, yeah, I don't think they thought it through. I don't think they expected so many people to have been in combat. So I don't know. I don't think they really planned it.
It really seems to me that if anybody has a combat ribbon, they ought to get full bill.
I would agree, but yeah, what can you do?
I don't know if people realize that. I don't know if
no, most people think that
I don't think they realize that.
Most people think you get medical benefits for the rest of your life, or you're taken care of. Most people don't. If you retire and you do your 20 years, then you get benefits, or whatever. But yeah,
see, I don't think most people realize that the U.S. used so many reservists in the combat situations, and then pulled them out right before they would have vested, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
I don't think most people realize that happened.
No, I don't think so.
Which I think
I didn't realize it happened until a couple years later.
Yeah, when I heard that really made me angry. I was, not just for you, I heard it, I forget where I heard it. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That just doesn't seem right at all.
Yeah, budget, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, they have a budget for so many other things.
Exactly.
I would be fine with them saying, we'll take care of your schooling.
Yes.
But whatever.
I wish I know I don't have a platform, but I wish I did, because it really bothers me.
Yeah.
It bothers me that that anyone would go into actual combat and have a combat ribbon and not get a full GI Bill.
Well, I guess that would cause problems, because let's say 90% of the people that are in Iraq and Afghanistan are not in combat. All these guys with a coffee mug that says combat veteran or a shirt, that means nothing. You can order that. And I think they think, well, I was in a combat zone.
Right.
So I'm a combat veteran. But that's not exactly how it works. You get a combat action ribbon if you get fired at by an enemy. Even if you get shot in the neck by friendly fire on your base, you don't get a combat action ribbon.
Right. Well, I don't mean they would be the only ones to get it, but I think they for sure should. Yeah, and regardless of your time or whatever.
Yeah, and I would assume if they did that, then a whole bunch of people would be complaining, saying, "Wait a minute, I was in Iraq, I didn't get a full whatever." So maybe that's why.
Maybe, but man, that just seemed very wrong to me when I heard about it. It seemed like, it seemed right.
I would have liked a full GI Bill, because I went back to school at 28. And that's when I really appreciated school. And, I loved it. I loved every course. If I would have been rich, I'd probably just keep getting degrees. Just stay in school. I loved it. But it was getting very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far did you go in school?
I have about 100 hours.
Have you thought of going back?
I would like to, but it's probably not going to happen. I mean, unless at some point I get very financially secure. But right now, 5 kids.
Yeah.
I have my hands full.
I've actually thought of going to school.
I think you'd like it. I think if you get into the political, any non-science is whatever. It's ideological. All of it's nonsense. But if you take like the course that I went engineering, and I loved all the math. I loved the drafting school. I loved all of it. I failed a couple of those math classes and took them over, but I still loved it. It was hard. I think that's what I loved it. I loved the history. I loved almost all the courses I took, because I didn't take nonsense courses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One reason I've debated, and one reason I haven't gone or done it is that I just don't like how corrupt a lot of this stuff has become.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah, Rogan just had on one of those guys. You remember those 2 guys who would put out fake scientific reports?
Yes, yeah.
And then they got awards and all this stuff.
Yes, they got cited by tons of citations.
Yeah, and they did complete nonsense, like, dog rape and whatever else. And then all these people in the peer review just, you get the award for this. And then it turned out they were a hoax.
Yeah.
Well, that guy was on again the other day. I don't know what day it was.
Uh-huh.
And he was just talking about explaining how this ideological nonsense has taken over the universities, and if you stand out against it, but it's bad. That's why that side of college is nonsense.
Well, but it's invading all the sides. If you listen to Brett Weinstein talk about it, and these are all leftists.
Yeah.
I
like Brett.
Yeah, I do too.
He's very smart.
But he's not like a right winger at all. He's not even middle. He's left.
He's an old school liberal.
Yes, but he's left.
Yeah.
He's a traditional left, right?
Traditional, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's my point is that you have these people who are left.
Yeah.
And they're saying, of course, what's funny to me, like of Weinstein, I like him.
Yeah.
Because I like how he talks, and I like a lot of the stuff he says. But what annoys me about him and them, that side, is they're all acting like they just figured this out, and they think they're brilliant.
Yeah.
I've been hearing this from the right for like 30 years.
Yeah.
Have been saying this is happening and this is where it's going.
Well, and guys like that didn't say anything.
Well,
and now it's going too far, and they're like, oh, wait.
Well, they were like, oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You're a bunch of conspiracy theorists.
Right.
And now they're like, oh, no. But now they say it, and then they pat themselves on the back because they called it, 2 years ago.
Well, once it steps over your bounds and it's going to push you out of your position, then now you're standing up against it.
Well, that's what's so funny about all this cancel culture, that now it's like running over everybody.
Well, and that's the thing is, if you have everyone has a moral line, a code, even if it's very liberal, but you have a code. Like, let's say you're super liberal and everything, but you don't think kid pornography is okay. What happens when people start saying kid pornography is okay? Well, you're going to have to stand up now. Now you're on this side.
Yeah.
So even if you don't like my code, that's a little more conservative. At some point, you're going to get overrun, and you're going to have to stand up.
That's exactly right.
At some point, everyone gets run over.
And that's what the right has been saying forever. They've been saying, if we get, one of the arguments being made from the right, like say on gay marriage, is where does it end?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Then what do we do about polygamy? Well, some town just made it legal to be, they call it polyamorous.
Yeah. What happens after that?
Right.
Some people are trying to marry their dog, and
and
it's will and the leftists will be like, yeah, that's ridiculous. We're not going that far.
Yeah, that's what they said 20 years ago about what they're doing now. I mean, they're embracing wholeheartedly. I saw what's his name? That guy Mark Lamont Hill. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a leftist. He used to be on Fox News all the time back when I used to watch it. But anyways, he's like a professor, and now he was on an interview, and I think it was Candace Owens asked him, can men have babies? And he says, some of them.
Yeah.
Some of them. And she's like, can men menstruate? Some of them. He's like, what are we even saying anymore? And this is what Brett Weinstein is like furious about. That is like,
well, now there's no reality.
Well, yeah, now you're saying that biology isn't biology.
Right. Yeah, once it affects the biologist.
Yeah. Now he's saying, well, wait a minute now. I mean, there's got to be a difference between what you think of things and what you say actually is and is not.
And most of these guys say, look, I'll call you whatever you want to be called, but you're not. Yeah. You're not menstruating. And you're not having a baby.
Yes. Well, one of the things that I've thought about is, on the dating scene, I don't even know how you would date anymore. I mean, how do you know? How can you know if there are really a man or a woman anymore?
Well, you're not even allowed to ask.
I know.
If you say, I'm not interested in dating a trans or something like that, well, you'll get run over. You'll be kneel and apologize.
Well, this is why. This is one reason why I think this is what has made the Christian or the traditional Christian perspective very relevant, and that Christianity's been saying, you need to marry within the Christian community, not marrying non-Christians.
Right.
You need to stay within that, and a lot of people, for even Christians, are like, not sure about how, well, what's it matter? As this becomes more and more, then we're going to find out why the Jews did so well in maintaining their cultural separateness. Right. Because they would only marry within themselves, within their very tight-knit community.
Right.
And it saved them a lot of issues and created a lot of benefit for them.
Sure.
Over time.
Well, it only makes sense to have a standard that you follow. If it's proven and the standard works, the basic family unit has always worked. Let's keep it at that. That's a good standard. Well, I think once, let's say in the 60s, when things started, the moral fabric started tearing apart, you can tell that poverty and freedom has been, if you could graph the morality of a society and then graph the freedoms, I think it'd be matching. As the moral fabric gets torn apart, so does freedom. More government, more. It's practical because let's say, everyone's, even conservatives, the government's getting too big. Well, I mean, Ken Paxton's office is probably the size of the Pentagon right now because of the child support area. The child support section is probably huge, and that's not because the government got big because, they wanted to get big. It's because so many men are leaving their kids, Men aren't doing their job, so naturally there's more government now. And that's our fault. The government is a reflection of what our society has become. So
that's true.
And there's more. Because that's a practical one. There's more,
No, that's a really good. That is actually a very good example. And it seems to be that it's as immorality grows, it requires, like you're saying, it requires that added layers of government to suppress. And now as they're not trying to suppress it, they're just trying to manage it.
Right.
They're just trying to manage the consequences instead of the problem.
Yeah, and I think people don't understand freedom is accountability. If you want to be free, you got to be accountable. You should want to take care of yourself. Personal responsibility. You should be worried about your own health, your own whatever, your family, and if you do that, you'll have more freedom. It's like a law.
Yes, it seems like that what is increasing by the immoral culture is rights increases, but for liberty decreases.
Well, yeah, and it's like Yeah, it's an opposite. What you think is more freedom, like who was Jon Stewart? Funny guy.
I know who he is.
And he says, I remember he said the other day, he goes, I just don't think people's health should be dependent on their job. People should have free health care. And it's like,
Yeah.
then you're not accountable anymore. You're not free. I mean, a 16-year-old at home whose parents are taking care of him is not free. You only get real freedom when you get out and work and you pay for your own stuff. And if you're worried about your health, you work out and you eat right.
Yes.
The government shouldn't have anything to say about my health.
But that's the thing, is the moment you say the government's going to provide us this free health care,
Yeah.
right? Then the government has every right to tell you what to eat.
Well, you're dependent now.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to. And the idea, people say, well, I don't want the government telling me what to do. Well, then you got to quit taking from them.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Let's go back to the men who leave their families, right? Or never get married and their kids are just in the wind. So now we have a whole bunch of impoverished women who can barely handle it. They're working 2 jobs. They can't get an education. Their kids are poor. They're living in gang-infested areas. Now we have to have a bigger welfare system because we do want to take care of these poor people, but that could have all been avoided if people would just take care of their responsibilities.
But how do you get back to that?
You need a revival.
Yeah,
That was what you
it can't
need.
come from the government.
No, the more the government interferes, the less freedom each one of us has. And the only way to get more freedom is for each individual to take care of their own selves.
The problem we have right now, and this is the dilemma, that we're at this place where you have all these kids that are out of wedlock.
Right.
You're talking about who knows how many. I mean,
Huge percentages.
right.
Yeah.
It's 75% of blacks. It's
30 or 40%.
It's 25% of whites, and it's like 40% of Hispanics.
Yeah.
Are all born out of wedlock. Not 80 or 90% of kids black kids live in a single parent home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you're at. So then, you say, well, we want to deal with that. I don't know that you can.
There's no way to put it back in the box. Yeah.
I don't think you can. I think you can put the toothpaste back in the tube.
No, I mean,
I don't even know what you would
there's
do.
really no fix except more government, right? And that's where we're at.
But that more government creates more of the problem.
Right. So now more people are dependent, and now there's such a everyone just thinks government. I see people saying, "Oh, finally, the governor said everyone has to wear a mask." It's like, no, that's the last thing we need. I think everyone should take responsibility for your health. If you're worried about it, stay home.
Yeah.
Just get out of our lives with this health care, or it's none of your business if I get the virus and hug my grandma when she's dying. You know what I'm saying? It's not the government's place. But there's so many people dependent on the government now. They want the government to make sure there's enough health care. There's, food. Now we're feeding everybody. It's the welfare system is
Well, see, the way
overblown.
the government's looking at it, kind of devil's advocate on this, is the government's saying, well, if you test positive and you go in to the hospital, they're going to provide the care.
Yeah.
And they're actually going to subsidize that care.
Right.
And so then they're saying, well, if we're going to subsidize the care,
Yeah.
then we're going to tell you what. Then we have a say in how you're going to get it or not get it.
I get it. I just think
Well, I don't agree with that.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Well, it was like this really proves the anti-vax group. I looked at the numbers a while back and I said, look, before this vaccine came out, so many people died of polio. And then after, it's gone down this much. I like the vaccine. I'm going to do that for my kids. But I'm not going to force anybody else to do it because I don't want that. That's a freedom. If you don't want to do that, I don't want the government having anything to do with forcing anybody. If I'm worried about them, then I'll take them out of that school if it's an outbreak or whatever. So it's kind of the same thing. This is kind of proven. I don't want the government making huge decisions like that. But they almost have to.
Yeah, it's a hard call because, where do you draw the line of what the government tells people they can do and can't do? Because that is the idea. That's what the government is for. It's what, this is the tricky balance.
Yeah.
A government that has no rules isn't a government.
Right.
Right. That's what it's for. We get together, we collectively decide we're going to establish rules for society. That's what a government does. And then those are going to be enforced.
Right.
And that's what they do. So then what rules do you think the government should institute? What do you think is properly, if you could set up the Republic of Don
for this specific problem?
No, just in general, just overall, like in an abstract. What do you think the government should do?
They should just enforce the Constitution. That's it. Freedom of speech should be enforced. Everyone should take care of themselves. I think personal responsibility across the board.
So then they shouldn't. Should they regulate marriage?
No.
So that anyone can get married to anybody.
Why is the government into marriage? Now there is an argument saying, society grows with the family unit. So they encourage marriage by giving you benefits. Mm-hmm. I understand that because it helps society as a whole. If you're growing, your population is growing, you need it to be, somewhat encouraged. Mm-hmm. So I don't see the advantage to the population for two men to get married. I don't see the advantage of it for a society. Not speaking religiously or anything else. I'm not really worried about you marrying your pet.
You realize that, but you realize that the problem is that the moment you say that if you find a benefit for society, it opens the possibility or it legitimizes the government regulating.
Right.
Well, you can find benefits to everything, which is what they've done to the Constitution.
True. Yeah.
I mean, they've gone in, and that's essentially the argument for Obamacare.
Right.
Was that it's a tax,
it helps everybody.
It's a benefit, and you can reason your way.
Well, and that's the thing. You can
any size government you want with that.
That's right.
That's the dilemma.
Well, and that's a great thing. You can argue for anything and make a good argument for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think less government is good, but there's no less government when people are not taking responsibility for themselves.
Yes, that's true.
So it's gonna balloon along with our. It's a reflection of us. If less people are responsible, the government's going to get bigger.
But it's also a feedback
cycle.
loop. It's
a cycle, yeah.
Because when the government takes care of these kids, it allows for people to be responsible, but it also incentivizes them to be more irresponsible.
Well, and that's the thing about the welfare system. That's like it's almost like now you're enslaved. You're never going to get a raise, but you're never going to work. You're never going to go work harder than your 20 hours because then you'll lose your welfare. So you're always going to make this income, and you're stuck there forever. And your family is stuck there forever.
Which is why, Milton Friedman, way back in the 70s, was advocating for what he called a negative income tax. It's what's now known as UBI, Universal Basic Income.
Yeah, Andrew Chang. Yang.
I actually like it. I like it a lot.
How does that work?
So
how do we afford $1,000?
Well, because it's in replacement of. It's not in addition to. So like with Yang's plan and with Milton Friedman's, and there's been several, the idea is you choose. Mm-hmm. So if you're already on welfare, you can choose to take the UBI, but then you're off welfare.
Okay.
And then you get, no matter how much money you make, it does not make any difference. You get that money every month. Everybody gets it.
How do you afford that? That's what I'm saying.
Because you're taking everyone off of welfare.
But I don't think we're spending that much on welfare where you're going to pay everybody $1,000. I mean, how many people are where you have a $350 million? Mm-hmm. $1,000 a month? What is that, $3.5 billion a month? Mm-hmm. How fast does that get into the trillions every year?
But we're already into our welfare outlay and our liabilities on it are enormous.
Right.
It's the biggest part of the budget.
But are we spending that much?
Of the non-defense budget.
Yeah, are we spending that much on welfare?
Yeah.
To make it equivalent to $1,000 a person?
When you put everything in, yeah.
Are you talking about instead of Social Security, instead of all of these?
No, Social Security would be separate because that's actually taxed.
Right.
Right, so that's actually taxed. So but you're talking about Medicaid, and you're talking about...
You're replacing all of it.
All of it, including the state level
Medicare.
Stuff. Medicare is different. Medicare is also taxed.
Just Medicaid.
Medicaid is the means-tested one.
Okay.
So Medicaid, you don't pay in; you just get it. It's just free health for if you're poor. You get free. You get better health coverage if you're poor than if you're rich, or medium, I should say, right? Where this would come in, it would replace all of that, and so then you get that. And many of the people that get it would actually come out to less than their deduction. See, that's the other thing you got to realize. You also get rid of standardized deductions. So you get rid of a lot of the tax returns loopholes, but a lot of the deductions you're able to take.
Right. So instead of all the poor people getting so much in the tax return, they're just getting a monthly income.
Right, and the rich people, instead of you being able to go in and take a big deduction and reduce your taxes, you just get $1,000 in your account. It works out the same for most people. Once you reach a certain income level, even though you're getting $1,000, they're just paying you your deduction up front.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that.
You get that?
I just can't. A lot of people I can't imagine our budget.
But the idea is, and this is
a lot of money.
I understand that, but you have to realize at a certain point you break even. You're not actually giving them any money.
Right.
Right. And the idea is because you're getting that money and it's not dependent on being poor, then there's no incentive to stay poor.
Well, yeah, now you're not going to get punished for working.
Right.
Yeah.
And as soon as you cross the line, you're no longer getting the $1,000 in reality because you're evening
paying more
out.
Taxes, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You've broken that line and now you get it. See, that's to me the genius of it. Everybody gets it. So you never think, oh, I don't want to cross that line because I'm not going to get it.
Well, it takes away you're not stuck.
That's right. And so if you're Jeff Bezos, you get $1,000 a month. And people say, well, that's ridiculous. Yeah, it is ridiculous. But the point is it makes it where everybody gets the same.
Right.
And there's no incentive to not cross any line. That's
I just can't imagine the math. That's so much money every month.
It actually works out.
I think I did the math wrong. 300 million times 1,000. That's
do it right here. We need to get Nolan set up where he can do this for us. Well, it wouldn't be 300 million because little kids wouldn't get it.
Okay, so 150.
So let's say 150 million
times 1,000.
Yeah, it'd be 150 billion
every month. So that's at least $1.5 trillion a year we're just giving out.
1.8 trillion.
So we're doing the stimulus over and over.
And then let's say that that's right. But then let's say that half of that is a net. Let's say a quarter of those are net zero, which means they're going to
paying the same amount in tax.
It equals out by the tax deductions you get rid of.
Right.
So you equal, and then a quarter of that will actually be making more. When you do the math and you look at what it projects to do, what it would most likely incentivize the activity or behavior, you're actually going to come out a lot cheaper than we're paying now. And you're going to get all these people out of that cycle you're talking about.
Yeah.
Look, if we had a perfect, I don't think it's a perfect system.
Right.
Like if we could set up any system, well, that wouldn't be the one.
Right.
But you're not going to get rid of welfare.
Yeah.
So then what are you going to do? You can't get rid of welfare. What are you going to do then? Because all we're doing is creating a larger and larger and larger welfare class. That's what welfare creates.
Yeah.
Welfare incentivizes a welfare class.
Yeah. You can sit home and not do anything and not get a raise and not worry about it. Yeah.
Right. Whereas if you get $1,000, you're not going to sit at home with $1,000, most people, because it's not enough to sit at home.
Right.
And it's money you have. And what Milton Friedman always argued, Yang argues it wrong. I thought Yang really had a chance. I thought.
Not in that party.
Not in that party.
Nobody has a chance.
What he should have done was see the light on abortion.
Well, yeah.
And run as a Republican.
Well, and that's the same thing with Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes.
Love that girl. She's smart. She served. She's got everything going for her except the abortion thing. If they would just get off the pro-choice, they would have the support from both sides. I mean, they would just...
I think right now, anybody could win at this moment who came in. Who could come in centrist, pro-life.
Well, and that's Tulsi Gabbard.
Moderate pro-life.
That's what I liked about her. She's so moderate, and she made sense, and she's not scared of Hillary. I mean, she went back at her multiple times. Just surprised she didn't commit suicide since then. You know?
With getting stabbed 3 times in the back. Stab herself in the lower back 3 times.
Yeah. So, but anybody like that has a much better chance of getting actually voted in by both sides.
I think they could win right now.
Just step in,
I think they could step in right now if they were close enough to the Republicans. They would siphon away all of that. And Democrats are looking for anyone who's not Trump and not Biden.
Well, yeah. I don't know why they keep picking the Democrats would have won the last 2 elections.
Oh, I know.
They would just stop picking their strategy works so well to go against Trump, right? All these things that they're doing to make him look bad. But their strategists, when it comes to picking who's going to get voted in, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, it's hilarious. They pick the one person each time.
It's the worst.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, what is bad about Trump in the first election? Well, he's unlikable. Well, let's go find someone less likable than Trump.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's find the most evil woman.
And now what's well, he says crazy things. Let's go find someone who says crazier things than Trump.
But that don't make sense.
Just rambles. Just
At least Trump is funny.
I know. It's like, I mean, you could have thrown a dart into a room and got a better candidate.
And these libertarians, I lean libertarian in so many ways.
Yes.
But when it comes to foreign affairs, they're kind of like amateurs.
You think so?
Yeah.
I'm not in any way, so explain that to me. Why you think that?
Well, see, they want all open borders. They're all anti-war, which is fine. Everyone's anti-war until you see the rest of the world, and we're hated. We are hated. People want to come here and ruin everything about the U.S.
So you're against open borders?
Yeah.
Are you against open borders for terrorism reasons, or across the board you want it shut down?
I just think I like the idea of people earning their way in. And it's not just that. Like in the 1920s, there was no immigration thing. But that's before we were all hated. There's a lot of people that hate us. They would love to come over here and take over from the inside, like they have in France and England. I mean, those guys have gotten overrun.
That is true. Yeah,
They've lost their whole system of lifestyle because they let way too many people in that didn't belong.
They didn't share their culture.
Yeah, and if you earn it, then you really care about it. Like, I'm always amazed that the most hardcore Trump supporters are like Mexicans who earned their way here. They love Trump. You know, like people who did it the right way or whose parents did it the right way, and now they're here and they love the conservative values. It's the people who don't have to do anything to earn it who always vote for the free stuff, and they, you know.
Yeah. My theory is that like people coming from Mexico or pretty much anywhere south of here, they don't generally identify with the conservative ideas.
Right.
Because they don't have any experience of it whatsoever in their country.
Right.
There is no conservative party in Mexico.
Right.
None. And so I think that when they come to the States, one is they're not fleeing from oppression, government oppression.
Right.
Right. So they see government still as being a great answer to everything.
Yeah.
And then everything they've ever known is government intervention, government help, big government. They don't even realize the subtle difference. So it's not even that subtle, but the difference between the U.S. Constitution and the Mexican Constitution, which is interesting because Mexico actually modeled, like many countries, modeled their Constitution on the U.S.
Yeah.
And yet they got it completely backwards. So in the Mexican Constitution, everything is rights given.
Yeah.
What the rights the government gives you. That's what it talks about. Yeah. In the U.S. Constitution, it's the rights that we give the government.
Away, yeah.
Well, that's the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
But the Constitution itself, the principle is, these are the rights we give the government.
This is the limitations on your government. Yeah.
This is the rights we are giving the government. It's we, the people, are establishing you, the government.
Right.
And all the others that I know of, it's the opposite. It's the government establishing the people.
Right.
With these rights. And Mexican, they have crazy rights in theirs. I think they have like the right to own a home.
It's a lot harder to do it that way when you're delineating every right.
Well, yeah, and that's why these constitutions are constantly in flux. Where the other way we're saying we have all the rights, even rights we're unaware of. Even rights we've never heard of, we already have them.
Right.
So even something that might get invented in the future, we don't have to worry about it. That's ours. It belongs to us, the people who make it.
Yeah.
And the government has these enumerated rights. And anything we don't enumerate, they don't have. The Bill of Rights gets put in because there were people who now, in retrospect, very wisely, were very worried that would not come through, that people wouldn't understand this properly. And they would think that somehow these right to bear arms, the right of speech, that since they weren't in the Constitution, weren't mentioned, then the government could take them over. And so they insisted for the passage of the Constitution for ratification that those be actually put in.
Make sure these are verbally,
put in. And the opposition to the Bill of Rights was actually from the people who were more libertarian in that time. Because they were afraid that if we enumerate these 10, or however many they would enumerate, but let's say 10 of them. It was 10 amendments they put in. So let's enumerate these 10. If we enumerate them, people are going to think those are the only rights we have.
Right.
That was their fear. So then it's actually going to work in taking rights away from us.
Right.
I see both sides, but when you look at the Second Amendment, I think that the ones who wanted it in, they were right. Could you imagine where we'd be right now without the Second Amendment?
Well, yeah, and it's like, I think one comedian said, he goes, you want the right of free speech, and immediately after that, you need your gun. Because if you can say anything you want, you need to have a gun with you.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I agree. Where are you at on the whole idea of free speech? And I had a conversation with Katie on that.
Okay.
Because she wasn't. I had made a point on one of the podcasts about that free speech doesn't mean there's no consequences and that there's no cost to it. And she didn't really like that, and that's why she asked to come on, and we talked about that a little while. But how do you see that? I mean, the idea is, I don't have a problem with companies that fire people when they say something.
Right.
I don't think that's free speech.
Well, no, not at work.
Well, I don't mean anywhere. I mean, I think if you post on your Facebook something that I as an employer don't like, and I fire you, people say, well, you're taking away their freedom of speech. No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
See, but a lot of people are using free speech to mean that means basically I can say anything I want, and there can't be any consequence to it.
No, yeah, that makes no sense.
That goes to your responsibility point you keep making.
If you want to say something, be ready to be canceled.
Yes.
And be fine with it.
Yes.
And think it through before.
That's true, especially right now with all this going on.
Well, what about like Confederate flags and all this stuff?
What do you think about that?
I think people should be able to wear whatever they want.
What do you think, though, about them on state flags or Confederate monuments on public land?
I think it's the wrong thing to tear all this stuff down. I mean, for me personally, I think if someone wants to wear a Confederate flag, I like that. Now I know a little bit of something about this person. If I see a swastika on somebody, that's fine. You're allowed to have that. But I think I know a little something about it. That's a really
good point, because the more we homogenize people to a view, we're not going to know what's in their hearts. But we're not
if I see a guy, there's a lot of stuff that I see. Like if I see a tattoo of Jesus with the thorns and then blood and Virgin Mary on the neck, I kind of have an idea, what this person's about. Or teardrops. I like knowing this stuff. I can tell something about somebody. I see guys with shirts like this. I know that's a veteran, So I like knowing when I look at somebody like, oh, okay, this guy's a college guy. You can kind of categorize, this one's not a threat as much as that one over there.
No, I like that's a good point.
And the statues, I say leave them for the historical. But if you want to add other statues to give it more of a story, like, hey, this guy fought, I don't know how to do it, but I don't think tearing them down helps anything.
Well, like with Grant, with his foot on Lee or something.
Yeah. Or, add a black hero right behind him with a knife or something. I don't care. But don't tear them down. Add something to the story if you want, or leave a plaque there that said, look, this is what happened. But I don't think we should also judge people from 300 years ago. Current modern.
Well, there's a number of. It's complicated. It's a real complicated issue.
It's very complicated.
My stand has been this, and I'll tell you what it is, and you tell me what you think. But forever, for a very long time, since I started thinking about it, I've thought that they should not have ever put up these statues to the Confederate people on public land. I don't have a problem with private. So if you want to wear a Confederate flag, or you want to put up a big statue on your land to Jeff Davis or whatever, great. Whatever. I don't care about that.
Sure.
But public land, public money.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah,
putting those up is what was honoring people who betrayed the country. I just don't think it was a good idea.
That's a matter of perspective, though.
Okay, tell me that.
I always heard that it wasn't about slavery, it was about freedom, for a state's freedoms and rights. And I understand the arguments against that. I've heard both sides. But let's say that the federal government raised 40% taxes on your crop. And you're not mad about the slavery part. You're mad that they just raised your taxes 40% to manipulate you. So you're standing up for your own. You're saying, no, I'm not going to do that. A lot of these guys, I don't want to judge them and say that they were only fighting for the rights to have slaves. I'm assuming a lot of those people didn't want to have slaves.
Well, only 25% of them actually had slaves.
That's what I'm saying. A lot of people did not like the federal government telling them what to do, and I think that's right. I don't want the federal government telling us what to do. I think at any point, if Texas recedes, that's great.
Succeeds?
No.
Secedes?
Secedes. What did I say?
Recedes.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, it's a ridiculous idea. It's a joke, but
yeah,
I understand that there are two sides, and a lot of people with Confederate flags weren't fighting for. Maybe some of them were, and a lot of them were, but they were. I think they were fighting because they were getting taxed ridiculously.
Yeah. So the way I look at that is, I think that like Lee was not Lee. There's an interesting post was put up on that where it compares what Lincoln said and what Lee said at the time. And Lincoln said, if I could save the Union by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save the Union by not freeing a single slave, I would do it.
Right.
That's what Lincoln said. And Lee said, I wish I could buy all the slaves in the country and free them. Right. To save the Union. So, those are the two main leaders of it.
Right.
And it shows, kind of a perspective they have. The problem is, I don't think you can judge what a person's fighting for based on what they themselves in their heart are fighting for. It's the cause you're on.
Okay.
You're on a side. And you may be saying, well, I'm on the side, but that's not why I'm on the side. I'm on the side for my own reasons.
Right.
Well, everybody has their own reasons. Everyone has private reasons. But the side you're on stood for something. And the problem I had with the Confederacy, and I argued for a long time about, the whole thing you're saying, that, well, there's about states' rights and about the freedom. The problem is you go and read the Confederate Constitution, and the cause wasn't about that.
So, I understand the cause.
Yeah, the Confederate Constitution gave no freedom to any state to decide to be free. No Confederate state had the right constitutionally to be a free state.
Right. Yeah.
So then it's not about that. Then it isn't about, we just want to be able to make our own mind up. That was the whole issue. The reason why the Civil War started was because the Northerners, the Southern Democrats were able to push through legislation and Supreme Court decisions that effectively made the entire country slave. So if a slave left the South and went into the North, not only could a Southerner send up bounty hunters and get them.
Really?
But they could deputize any Northerner, anybody, to help them find them. And by federal law, they had to help them get the slave and take them back. So if you're a, and I would like to think that you and I would be on that side, but I don't know what side I'd be on.
There's no telling.
Yeah, it's hard to say. But anyways, let's say you're a staunch abolitionist and I'm a slaver. And my slave gets away and is on your land, by federal law, I can deputize you, and you have to take that slave and help me take him back. You're bound, federally bound.
Yeah.
That's what caused the division, because they're no longer, the Northerners could no longer be free.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you took your slaves into the North, they were no longer free when they crossed the border. Because you could just bring them back.
Yeah, what a complicated time.
And then you could go in, and they were doing this. You could go in and find any black person, even one who'd been born free, and take him back, kidnap him, and make him your slave. And there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. There's.
I'd like to think we're both on the abolitionist side and fighting for that.
I would like to think so.
Yeah, but it's hard to judge even the people on. I think back. Okay, so let's say 1820s or whatever. We can look back and say this was terrible. It's awful. Man stealing is, a terrible sin. Keeping them suppressed even after all these years. But, let's think about the time. They were amputating your leg for a spider. The medical, it was so ancient. It's hard to even imagine what life was like in those days. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. I have a hard time trying to think about what it would take for a person to be that way, to think that it is actually good to own people and get
it makes
work
sense
out of
in
them.
your head.
Yeah, that it makes moral sense.
Well, and it's the same thing with a lot of stuff in that era, like the rule of thumb. You could beat your wife with anything that's about the size of your thumb and it's legal. You know what I mean? How does that make sense to you? I am such a good leader. I can keep my wife into submission. It just makes no sense.
No, it doesn't.
But that was the world.
It was the world, but it wasn't. One good thing was it wasn't the world everywhere. So even like in the darkest moments of slavery, you have people like what's her name? Berkeley. Breek, I can't recall her name now. Anyways, she's this southern white woman.
Yeah.
One of the largest, her family's like the largest slave owners in that area. I forget where it was now. South Carolina, maybe. Anyways, they're like the largest one. They're the wealthiest, largest slave owner. She becomes persuaded that it is immoral from Christian perspective, from her Christian faith, she becomes incredibly anti-slavery.
Right.
Moves to the north, leaves her the lap of luxury she was in, moves to the north, basically is poor her whole life after that, and fought on the abolitionist side. One of the main voices of abolitionism. And for years, for years, until basically worked herself to death, almost literally, to do it. So there are these pockets of people who looked at this not from like Lincoln was more from an economic perspective. Right. He's saying, how can we have wages if we have slavery? Yeah. That's never going to happen. And so people like him who got rich by wages, well, he would have just been... He'd been like the 75% of the Southerners.
And it would make sense to everybody who doesn't have slaves. Everyone would look at that and go, I don't want to own somebody.
Right. But many of them are looking at it saying, well, that'll just kill our economy, which is what most of the North was upset about.
About what?
It was killing their economy.
Oh, that the labor was so cheap. Well,
yeah, they couldn't. It was free. They had free labor. Yeah. And here they are trying to sell their labor. Yeah. But they have a whole half of the country they can't sell their labor to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that means that then unemployment's high. You
can't compete. Yeah.
Right. You can't go into the South and sell your labor. So you're stuck selling your labor only to the North. Right. They know that. So they can lower what they pay. The prices can be lowered because there's a labor glut. There's more workers than you need. Right. So then workers are undervalued. So this is a huge economic problem that the North was having. Yeah. They didn't actually want the slaves freed. The Northerners, most of them did not want the slaves freed because they knew what that meant. That meant they're going to flood the labor market in the North.
Right. That's worse.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why but they just didn't want them. They wanted that line there, which is why, going back to our original thing, my problem with the Confederacy and this whole idea of these Confederate monuments is that we're honoring people who started the war. The North did not start the war. Lincoln was voted in perfectly honest election. Right. Right. There's no illegitimacy to the election. Right. And he didn't come in and announce all slaves would be free. He said repeatedly in his campaign he would not free the slaves. Right. He was just going to not allow slavery to extend into the North or there to become an imbalance between slave and free going west. Right. He wanted to maintain the status quo. That's what he said. Now, whether, what it was in his heart, who knows? But his whole thing was, we cannot have slavery extend itself.
Yeah, it can't grow.
It can't grow. Yeah. It can't grow. We have to let this die out on its own. As soon as he gets elected, those states secede because they didn't like the election.
Was it a mail-in? Huh? Was it a mail-in vote?
Mail-in vote.
They're like, wait a minute. Who counted these?
Yeah. No, as soon as he's elected, they rebel. That would be like Trump gets elected and half the country says, okay, we're not part of the country anymore because I'd be like, wait a minute. When Obama got elected, we didn't secede. Well, yeah. I didn't quit. I didn't say, well, then I didn't like the guy.
Yeah, a lot of people threatened to, but nobody did.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, you can't do that. So I don't see the argument for the Confederate side. What in my view, you have these people, as honorable as Lee was as a human being, as a person, he was on the wrong side. Yeah. He served in the Army. Lincoln called him up to be the main general of his forces, and he resigned and went with the South. Yeah. I just don't put a statue of him on public land. I don't think they ever should have done it. And they did it. Many of these statues, and I haven't researched all of them to know, but many of these statues are put up
in the 20s or 30s
at the end of Jim Crow. Yeah. To try to recapture
those are good arguments. Those are good arguments. But it's tough.
See, I think the federal government should have outlawed those. To me, this is the way I put it. If Germany started putting up statues to Nazi leaders saying it's history, I don't think anyone would think that's okay.
No, it's not. And I've heard the argument, if someone started putting up pictures of the devil in your church, you're going to allow it?
But let's say not even Hitler. Let's say they put up statues to Albert Speer, who's called the good Nazi. He's the only top Nazi leader who was not put to death or kill himself. He actually lived and died old age. He went to prison for a while.
He didn't do any atrocities.
Well,
Yeah,
allegedly.
He had to be a part of
Or he
something.
was really good at it.
Yeah.
But he's a Nazi leader. Let's say he didn't do any atrocities himself. But he's not just a soldier. He's a Nazi leader. If you have a statue to Albert Speer, it is because of what he did as a Nazi. There's nothing else in his life.
Yeah, and I think it all
erect
comes down to your perspective. If you think of all these guys as super evil slave owners fighting to keep them suppressed, then I understand the anger. I just don't think.
No, I
from
don't.
reading their story, I don't, and I haven't really studied the Civil War recently, so I don't know.
Right.
But I know that I never got the feeling that these guys were. They just wanted to.
Many of them were not.
I
Like
think they
Stonewall
were-
Jackson was a staunch abolitionist.
Right.
Lee was not a slaveholder.
I think they just wanted to. At the time, they thought it was right to stand with their whatever.
It was their state. So
It's their state.
Right. It goes.
So I don't
You
think-
have to. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I just don't think that you can say it's like the same thing as a Nazi statue.
Well, it would be if it's like Albert Speer. Or who else would be a good example of a Nazi who would be that way? I can't think of their name right now. Anyways, there's a couple of them who were not part of the machine, the Nazi horror. They were just part of the government. They were high up.
Yeah. But they didn't. Yeah, stand.
No,
up.
but you say, do we put up a statue to them? And it's like, no, you're on the wrong side.
Yeah.
You may not have been invested in it, involved in it, and that's just where I am on that. It's like if I'm.
I would rather. I'm sorry.
No, go
I would
ahead.
rather instead of erasing all of this, I would rather add more. I want to know more about the Civil War because it's part of the South and the North. It's our story. It's from there on everything. I'll admit, I think everyone knows it was a long road to get full, get the oppression out. And we're still working on it, right, in some ways. But it's our history. I like it. And instead of just glorifying, let's say one side, let's put up bigger statues, whatever. Let's have a whole park of statues.
Everyone gets a statue. That's a good point.
You know what I mean? Let's add more to the story.
I
Let's
like
not
that.
leave it one-sided.
I do. I like that. I think that's definitely a good centrist view between two sides. As far as like tear them all down or build them bigger, it's like let's add to them.
Let's add the story, or let's put a plaque and say, I don't think this guy was on the right side, but yeah. He wasn't a terrible guy.
So this is so that's similar to an argument of I don't know if you ever read Ann Coulter.
No, I know who she is.
I love how she writes. I read her all the time. Don't always agree with her, but I like how she writes. Anyway, that's her argument. Her argument is that these statues and all this stuff is one of the reasons why the U.S. their Civil War ended, because they didn't try to impose. The Union didn't impose itself on the South again.
Yeah.
And the war could just end. And it's not like all these other countries where the civil wars just drag on and on.
Yeah, it destroys
and on.
everything.
Yeah, and then when they're over, they're never over. They just keep going.
Yeah.
And the South and the North have come together incredibly well.
Right.
I mean, part of the reason why I'm not for tearing the things down, even though I think they should have never been put up. And if I was
that's
governor,
one argument, yeah.
And if I was governor, I would probably take everything off of private land. I'd either put it in a museum or donate it to private places that want to maintain it and just do it all private. That's what I would probably do if I was governor. I'd get it off the flag and I'd get it out of all the public, like monuments. It could be in a museum, in a public museum, like all the other things. You
want to go learn the history of the museum.
But not out like we're honoring.
And that's weird.
Probably what I would probably do. But I do understand where they are. But the problem with the people that want to tear them down, in my view, is they think these things aren't a problem. I live in the South. Yeah. Nobody is, even people with Confederate flags, they're not hoping for slavery to come back. I mean, I know the most redneck people you can imagine, right? They have fewer teeth and they have stars on their Texas flag, right? And they're not out there like hoping that the South rises again. Right. Well, the dummies that say that generally don't even know what that means. Yeah. They're like, the South will rise again. And you're like, to them, that means NASCAR season starts. Yeah. It doesn't mean anything.
The Saints are going to win the Super Bowl.
Yes. It's like, these people don't even know what they're talking about. Right. And so all these people are acting like changing the name of the Redskins. Like, this is going to solve any problem there might be.
What you're saying is, if any of this actually fixed racism, then let's do it. Right. But it doesn't fix racism.
No.
It's like, it's like taking away the Confederate flag is going to get rid of the dumb rednecks that do believe this stuff. Mm-hmm. There's probably a percentage of them somewhere.
Of course there is.
But I don't know any, and I'm 40 years old, and I've never met one that admittedly said stuff like this. But I did know people who wore the Confederate flag, bandanas, or
Yeah.
and they were.
I know one person in my life who has actually told me, I think races are unequal.
Yeah,
One person.
yeah. I don't think. Yeah, well, maybe one or two.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, and I talk with a lot of people.
And yeah, and those aren't necessarily like your friends. They're just, oh, you said that out loud. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
All right, but I like to know.
Oh, yeah.
If you say that, I'd like.
I suspect you because he had a swastika and a
Yeah. Yeah.
Hitler and
Yeah.
SSS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about, let's say, the statues. Even the story, I would like to know, oh, this was put up in 1920, right after Jim Crow. Now that's part of the history. I don't want to take it out of there because it's glorifying whatever. Now I know in the 1920s, people still felt a certain way or whatever. I want to know that part, that part of the story. And just removing it doesn't.
Yeah, the other dilemma with removing them is it's just like, where does it end?
That's always a problem.
You know, it's like, okay, so now what about Jefferson? He was a slaveholder.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, when he writes the Declaration of Independence, the first draft, he blasts slavery, how horrible it is. And one of the reasons for the independence, according to Jefferson, was to get away from the slavery.
Yeah.
But he's a slaveholder.
Yeah.
And so what do you do with him? And then what do you do with Washington? I mean, it gets to the point where all we can have are statues of Adams.
Yeah. And why?
And Hamilton,
I just don't see how, revising anything helps.
No.
Maybe add and explain, hey, this guy, we put this statue up in the 20s. Which is why some of your great-grandparents, you could hear in their language that they were raised in the 1920s.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Because each generation, you're getting rid of a little more.
You know what? I think you're starting to kind of convince me. So this is good conversation. It reminds me in the Bible where God says, you know, when you cross over, you're going to put up this pile of stones, and they're going to stay there. So you're going to put up this pile of stones. And, you know, and so that whenever your kids look at that and say, what are those pile of stones about?
You get to explain it.
You can explain it to them.
Yeah.
And that goes along with what you're saying.
Yeah.
That you leave these monuments up and you tell people, look, whenever your kids say, why are these monuments here? Then you explain it to them.
Yeah, and you could use that in such an educational way. You could say, look, 100 years ago, they still thought this guy was awesome. And this was only 60 years after they lost the war. Now we're 100 years later, and look, we're all intermarried. We have half-breed kids everywhere.
Yeah.
And, we've made progress. This is a picture of our progress. I don't know.
No, I know. I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very good point. I think that people ought to be making that point more often on that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Man, yeah, this cancel culture is crazy. I figure I've gotten canceled. I put all kinds of stuff on Facebook. I'm figuring most people are just
I've been trying. I just don't think you can get canceled if you're already poor and you have nothing going for you.
I know. It's like,
I don't have any friends. I have no coworkers. What are you going to cancel?
Yeah, what are you going to cancel on me?
I could get another company name like this. $300 and a new LLC, and I'm in. No, yeah, you can cancel if you're making $1 million and you're about to take that away, that might be harder.
Yeah,
or easier to cancel.
There's a lot of people that I think that would like to speak about what's going on and just simply can't because they'll lose their jobs.
Oh yeah,
they'll lose this crazy the way people are now. And it's and you know what's you know you can look and that's another thing. It's like that sliding or that slippery slope, because you can say, okay, if someone comes out and says Hitler was right and I hate the blacks, you're like, okay, I'm going to fire that person. I don't want that. Even though I had a guy that worked for me that was like that, and I didn't fire him because it's like, as long as he doesn't say it at work.
Well, yeah.
Right.
And he's not taking fights with people.
As long as he's treating everybody with respect at work, I don't care what he believes. Like, whatever.
At your house, you do what you want.
Yeah, exactly. And you can, on Facebook or whatever, and I don't care. If anyone says, hey, you have an employee who's a white supremacist, I'll say, yeah. All I care about is if he can put the toilet papers up level. That's all I care about. And, treat everyone with respect. So if he's treating my black employees respectfully and brown employees or whoever, if they're treating respect, whatever. Believe anything you want about them. Yeah. Right? So, but you say, we're going to cancel all these supremacists. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to cancel everyone who's mildly that way. So, and then we're going to cancel all the dog whistlers.
Yep.
And then we're going to cancel people who don't clap loud enough. So that's what happened with that one. Did you read that about that one professor who
he didn't
comes
clap
out
long enough?
Well, that was in the Stalin, right? You're right. I love that story. It's a great story. Solzhenitsyn tells it. But no, there's this New England teacher puts out a post and says, "I support Black Lives Matter. I just think we need to be careful not to go overboard." They fired her because she clapped.
It wasn't full,
but she didn't clap long enough and loud enough. So now it's not. You can't just agree.
Right.
You have to agree at the right level of agreement.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean.
Well, and then once you do that, there's going to be another step tomorrow.
There is.
You're going to have to have to start washing people's feet. And that's why I kind of put a post up and it offended somebody. But I wanted to do the most extreme thing where.
Yeah, I thought that was very good. I mean, I didn't think that was extreme, but I thought it was.
But you wanted the worst examples, and someone's gonna get canceled either way. And my problem with canceling all these people.
Yeah, that was that Drew Brees thing.
Yeah, and he keeps apologizing.
I know, and then his wife apologizes.
Yeah, and now there's these videos of I take responsibility. Of what? What do you?
Yes.
Listen, I don't like taking away any of this stuff. Confederate flags. Whatever, white supremacy tattoos. I want to know who you are. If everyone goes into hiding because they're scared of getting canceled, now I have no idea who to trust. There could be racists all over the place. That doesn't fix the racism. It just hides it. Now I can't tell.
So the idea, the counterpoint to that is, I think you're right, but the counterpoint to that is this, that I think that the oppression and the racism in the South was extended artificially by putting up these statues, by reinforcing the Confederate iconography. So when you were a child, you grew up in an environment that idolized this, and that pushed this, and it extended that to where people grew up in that and became that. Many of them, and it took longer to get away from it. If that hadn't have happened, if they hadn't have allowed that to happen, I think it's possible that a lot of these conflicts would have subsided sooner.
Possibly.
Maybe. That's the counterpoint to it. But going back to what you're saying, I think we're at the point now where I don't think they affect anything. I don't think anybody is white supremacists because they saw that the Mississippi flag has the little Confederate symbol in it. I don't think anyone's like...
Nobody goes by and goes, yeah.
I don't think
I'm welcome here.
Or I don't think they were like, man, I like black people, and then they look at the flag and go, I can't stand black people. Now I realize.
Yeah.
I just don't think
this is the best generation. It's mostly gone, in my opinion. I don't see it.
I deal with a lot of people. And being a pastor and a street preacher and an evangelist. I mean, I talk to construction. I talk with a lot. Construction's funny. Construction's hilarious.
It's a weird mix.
Well, the idea with construction, you got everybody in there. Whites, blacks, brown, every kind of person, every level. They're all in there. And when you go in the porta-johns, you would think that it is the most racist place in the world. If you judged a construction site by what you read in the porta-john, you would assume that it's race riots inside all day long. All day.
And rape and
everything. You walk in and it's completely, you would wonder, where are the people who are writing that stuff out there? Because they're not working in here. I have been in construction here in San Antonio for 15 years. I have never seen, not one time have I ever heard a white person speak ugly to a black person or a brown person. Treat them with disrespect. It's always, hey, brother, can you help me out? Hey, boss, what you up to? It's always terms of respect. It's always talking to people very respectfully. They don't even cuss at them. It's just very respectful, very helpful. Hey, let me help you out with that. If a black guy is carrying a big ladder, he's trying to get through the door, anybody will come up. It doesn't matter who you are. Hey, let me hold that door for you, boss. Let you in. Hey, brother, let me get that for you. Let me help you carry your cart up the stairs. It's
even the guy with the swastikas.
Everybody. Everybody is. It's like, where are those people that are writing in the porta-john? And I think that the little snowflakes who don't live in the real world.
Yeah.
They look at the Porta-John of America.
That's what they see as
and they see all this racism on the walls.
Yeah.
And they just assume everybody must be a racist here.
Yeah.
Because look at the flag, look at their monument, look at this, and they point to everything that's written on all the graffiti.
Yeah.
And they're saying these people must be racist.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're not. They're not racist. They're just, I live with them, I deal with them. Just looking at that microcosm of construction, they're not racist at all.
Yeah, you
So
grew
then
up
why
in
do they
Mexico.
write that?
It's amazing that down there you can just call someone fatty.
That is hilarious.
Or blackie.
Well, yeah, that's the terms of endearment.
I had a friend, Negrito, hey, Negrito, come over here.
Blackie.
And here you'd be like,
Darky.
you were the most racist group of people because you just called him Blackie.
Yeah.
But no, they're friends.
Yeah, I mean,
You're
that's
just
what you
allowed to
call
just talk to
somebody,
each other.
even if you're not friends.
Baldy, big
If somebody
ears, yeah.
comes by
Yeah.
and you don't know their name, you can call them by their description. Hey, gordo. Hey, fatso.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, what's up? And it's like, fine. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, flaco.
Yeah, it was
Bueno.
awesome.
Hey, white boy.
Yeah, I
That's
had
how you-
more nicknames in Mexico. Oh.
It's hilarious. You walk to the taco guy.
I
the
knew
taco guy.
anytime there was a cabeza de huevo, it was me. What? But that's the amazing thing is here, don't call anybody by any description.
No, you can't describe.
Don't
anybody.
even try to say a gender. You know?
You can't even say Mister. Sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah, you can get canceled for that.
Yes.
It's gone so far, it's ridiculous.
It is
And
ridiculous.
it's like you were saying, all of my daily interactions at gas stations, at Home Depot, we're all mixed in. Everyone is nice and sweet. Nobody ever even, people help each other. I don't know. I just don't see it.
I don't see it anywhere.
And I know, the argument is white privilege is people who haven't experienced it, and so they could never understand it.
I always get a kick out of that.
It's like, well, what are you talking about? Everybody has never experienced it. I grew up in Mexico as blonde. I know what it's like. I know
it's like to be an extreme
I
minority.
stand out, and I got beat up. It's amazing. I got beat up so often in Mexico as a kid. I got 5 bikes stolen from me. I had knives pulled on me. I got beat up a lot. Steven didn't have that experience. I thought everybody did.
I did.
But I think
it
I
was
just
our
might have.
generation.
Maybe. I thought maybe I just looked like a victim.
That
guy's gonna be easy.
It's that cabeza de huevo.
Yeah, but I got beat up all the time. I just stood out, and I was a grade ahead than my age. So I was small.
Yeah.
I think I got my first black eye in 2nd grade. Got in a fight outside because they stole my sweater or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, it was like I just don't see it. I do understand, and I wasn't bitter. I just knew this is where I live. I stand out. I just got to watch out where I go.
Yeah, I got pulled over all the time. Stop constantly.
You carry cash.
Drive. Well, I didn't, but I got tired of it. I would just.
Well, I didn't live there that long.
Right, when the cops, at first I would be like play the game, but then after a while, they would pull me over. Of course, they see I'm white, so they pull me over.
Yeah.
And they come up and they say, and as soon as right when they come at the window, I just tell them, I don't pay bribes, ever. I don't care what you do. I'm not giving you a penny. You haul me off to jail. Don't waste. I'm not paying you a penny of bribes. And generally, they would just say, all right. As soon as you say that in Spanish, they're like, okay. And I would tell them, I know your game.
Yeah.
Been here a long time. I don't pay bribes.
Yeah.
So do whatever you want. And then they would just let me go.
And that's the weird thing. When I went down to Steven's wedding, I drove from here all the way down and then went down to Ixtapa and stayed at a little bungalow or whatever. I got stopped at least a dozen times by military. I got thrown on the ground. I was a young guy in a black Chevy Blazer with tinted windows. I understand.
Yeah.
And I didn't get mad.
And you're an American.
Yeah, and I stood there with Texas plates and a single guy. I might have been running drugs for all they knew.
Well, that's probably what you would have been doing. I mean, statistically, that's what you were doing.
And those guys pulled me over, threw me on the ground, held me down, whatever. I'm fine with it because I understand. I get it. It's a different mentality here. There's a victim mentality that's taken over. Mm-hmm. And it's really, it's bad for the individual.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can tell your kid, let's say you lose a leg, the worst thing you can tell your kid is poor you, all your life.
Your life is basically over.
Now,
everyone needs to.
This is what you can't do anymore.
Yeah.
No, you tell your kid, this is what you can do. Let's figure out what you can do, and let's do that. Let's focus on that. Stop focusing on this stuff. Well,
yeah, you show them videos of that guy running in the Olympics with the.
Yeah.
He doesn't have legs. He's got those.
Don't show him in prison for killing his wife. He shot his wife a year later.
Don't show him that
Don't
video.
show him that guy.
No, don't show him that video.
But yeah, you show them, okay. It's like, that's what I like about Jocko Willink. I love listening to that guy because he says, just take ownership wherever you're at. You own your problems and then work yourself out of it. And I know people hate the pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But seriously, most of the guys who were raised, like my neighbor, he's a Vietnam veteran, older black guy. I love the guy. I love going over there. I've done his floors. I've done his bathroom remodels. I've painted his house. I've done all kinds of work for him. And he just sits in there and talks to me. He was in the Air Force for 20 years, served in Venezuela. He did all kinds. I think he was special ops. I don't know. But he says, look, I was raised in Georgia on a farm. I never focused on that. I went to the military. We all got along. In the military, there's not really much color.
Did you see much of that there?
I saw no racism in the military. I mean, we called each other dark green and light green Marines. The dark green Marines, this and that. And sure, there was cultural differences. They loved playing certain games of dominoes, and they would talk to each other a certain way, But it was brotherhood. It didn't matter.
Right.
We didn't care. I mean, when you're in a combat zone you're American. We're all together. We didn't care. Mm-hmm. And he says, look, I didn't focus on how people affect. If they didn't like me, that's fine. I'm going to go to work. And he's doing well. He's a happy guy. He said, I never got mistreated. And I feel like the victim mentality hurts everybody, especially the person who if you're telling someone, look, yeah, people have been mistreating you all your life and you're suppressed or oppressed, then you're hurting them. Even if it's true, even if you have less privilege. Okay. Now take ownership and do something with it.
Yeah.
This is the best generation you can right now.
Oh, yeah. There's more opportunity to pull yourself up by the bootstraps than ever there has been in history.
Yeah.
Right now. And I don't get that when people say, I understand. I try to see both sides. I understand what they're saying, it's easy for you to say, they tell me this. I've gotten responses to stuff I've put out on this. And I'll have people, message me or comment on my videos or whatever and say, yeah, it's easy for you to say because you're white and where you live and you have all this stuff. Right. You don't know what it's like to be. No, I do know exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
So I know what it's like to be an extreme minority. Mm-hmm. I know what it's like to have to fight every day in school because of it. Yeah. I know what it's like to be racially profiled by the police. I know what it's like to be deported from a country where your kids were born. So I had kids who were dreamers, right, in Mexico. They were born in Mexico.
Separated.
Yeah, I was taken away. I was arrested because I was white. I was racially profiled. I was imprisoned, and then I was forcefully removed from the country and from my family. Yeah. So I know what all of that's like. I know what it's like to be deported. I know what all of that's like. And I know what it's like to get to a country where you didn't live, where you don't have a life, have no money, debt, making $10 an hour and living in a garage.
Yeah.
I know what all of that's like. Yeah. So how are these people any more dispossessed than I was?
That's the thing. Everybody has been a victim in some way. A woman could be like, yeah, but you weren't ever sexually, assaulted.
Well, I won't talk about what happened in jail.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. If everyone focused only on their victimhood,
right,
then nobody's going to move up.
You're right.
And truth is, I remember I was 11 and you were like 16 or something. We were in jail, and that jail was disgusting.
Yeah,
it was gross. And how long were we there? 2-3 days?
No, we were there for like 7 hours.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. It felt
like 2 or 3 days.
Felt like forever. Yeah,
it was disgusting. But all we did is tease the cops.
Yeah. We made them so mad. We would preach at them. We would just preach, and they'd be so angry because I'm yelling at them, and they're right there, and then they'd say, you stop that, and I'm like, what are you going to do? I'm already in jail. What are you going to do about it? Of course, I wasn't very smart. They could have done something if they really wanted. Yeah. They could have come in and beat the snot out of us.
Well, yeah, and I was 11. I kept getting up on the window, teasing them, and then get down. Climb up. They did not like that.
No, that was funny.
But yeah. Everyone has been through something, and if you just focus on that, you'll never move up. And I was the same way. I was living in a trailer at 16 years old, and I had no direction. I had no friends. I didn't feel like I fit in Mexico, and now I didn't feel like I fit in here. I had no goals, I was working night shifts for $4 an hour, minimum wage. I barely paid my bills. I had electricity turned off. I had not a crack den. They were cooking meth in a trailer right down the road from me. Saw a guy beating his wife. This is a regular trailer park, and I'm living there like, this is horrible. I didn't have privilege to, I don't know, here's your CEO job.
Yeah, I mean that's what they're saying. They're saying, well, you have the privilege because you're. They say, well, the white family wealth is so much higher. Not my family.
Yeah, maybe
right?
at the top.
Yeah, anywhere, but it wasn't me.
It.
So I didn't get an inheritance. They didn't give me a house. I didn't go to college.
Yeah.
I dropped out of high school like in my freshman year,
right,
or whatever. Sophomore year, I dropped out of high school. I don't have any education, making $10 an hour, working in bottom tier construction, living in a garage.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what it's like. I know what it's like.
Yeah.
Nobody gave me any hand-ups. Nobody gave me any push-ups.
Yeah.
It's like I had a job, and the reason why I succeeded at the job was because I went home every day after work and worked another 5 or 6 hours trying to figure out how to do better the next day.
Yeah.
And did that for 5 years and got, 6 years. 6 years. Did that for 6 years. Worked 18 hours a day for 6 years on not just when I was paid, but even time I wasn't paid to be better at the job that I was getting paid for. And got so good at it that then I could start my own company. And this is what's crazy. I'm in this school a while back. I don't know if you were working for me at that time, but we were working there over. He wasn't, right?
No.
It was a school that was like way behind on schedule, like years behind.
Yeah.
And they actually went bankrupt. The GC.
$250,000 a day, right? Or
No, it was like $10,000 a day.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, but they'd been doing it for like 2 years on liquidated damages. The GC went out of business. A big company bought them, and they took it over, and they had to have it done that month. So they're like. They called me up and said, can you come work here? And I'm like busy doing all my work. And they said, we're working around the clock. We'll pay you twice as much as you're getting paid right now. And you just come anytime you can. We don't care when it is. Just show up and do work. And so, okay, fine. That sounds great. Twice the money. And so I was going. And when I get there, it's just a disaster. And they're going around and they're asking the guys pushing the brooms, just the laborers, would you install the doors?
Right.
We will pay you. Tell us how much you want to make. We'll pay you to install the doors. And the guy's like, oh, I don't have a drill. And he kept sweeping for minimum wage. This is day laborers who are getting put out there on minimum wage.
Right.
They're getting the offer to start their own company.
Yeah.
They could have said, look, I will do it. Front me $500. I'm going to go buy the tools, and I'll come back and I'll do the work.
$60 an hour.
Yeah, and I'll do it for whatever. Yeah. And they would have paid it. They would have paid any amount of money. Yeah. They came to me and said, if you'll do the electrical, we'll pay you whatever you want. I'm like, I'm not an electrician.
Yeah.
By then, I'm working 23 hours a day or whatever. So I'm like, no, I'm done. I can't. Sorry, I'm already making enough. But they were going around asking everybody, all these people who supposedly don't have opportunities, were in front of my eyes given opportunity to not only make a tremendous amount of money, but start a company. It's how you get started.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I got started. I didn't make a plan. I think I'm going to start installing toilet partitions and I had no idea what it was. I didn't know what they were. I just happened to somebody said, hey, I need someone to do this work. And so, okay, I'll do it. I don't know what to do, but I'll try it. And I did it. And they're like, well, we need someone to install projection screens. Can you do that? Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, I can do that. I had no idea what I was doing.
That's
not a clue.
Been everything we do now.
Everyone.
Right? We show up doing one thing and they go, look, we need somebody right away to do this.
Well, and there's a lot of risk in doing stuff like that because you don't know, do I charge enough? Especially with working for yourself. If I charge this much and it takes me 2 days,
but when
it's
you're
a risk.
Poor,
but some people, they don't want to take a risk. They're so scared.
Well, that's true, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not blaming people who don't want to take the risk, but I don't like the idea that there's not the opportunity, or that because they were born in a certain situation, they can't pull themselves up. Sure, they can.
Yeah,
I know because I've been there and I've done that with all the same limitations they have.
Yeah, and it took. For me, it's like, man, the best thing I could have done was join the military at that time.
So would you recommend joining the military to young men?
It depends on the situation. I had zero, like I said, I was no direction. I was basically just swirling around, wasting my life away. I had no confidence. I felt like a victim from being beat up so much. And, I was a wimp. It really helped me out. It did me great. It grew me up. And there's nothing like stressing out as a young person with no goals, and then you go to boot camp and everything is taken away. You don't have to think about anything except right now. All your freedoms are taken away for 6 months. You have no rights. You don't talk on the phone. You don't worry about you go to the bathroom when they tell you. So you get reset. It's like a reset button, and then they build you up. So to me, it was great. It did great for me. I don't know if it's for everybody, but I just didn't.
Would you recommend your kids? Are you going to suggest to your kids that they go in the military? I mean, we don't know what the situation will be and things, but assuming that, just in theory, assuming that the military doesn't corrupt itself along with the rest of society.
I think if they want to, I think that's a great idea. Yeah. But I think
you wouldn't push them in that direction?
No, I don't think I kind of have a problem with any parent pushing their kids to do something. Go to college. If the kid doesn't have you're going to fail out of college. Mm-hmm. You have to want something, especially a good college degree, something that's hard. I think I'd rather push my kids to pick something that's hard and do that. I don't care what it is.
Yeah,
pick a hard job.
I've done both. So my kids are all grown. And with Cole, I did what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's anecdotal. It's just one person. It's not like, you're right. I mean, things can change. But with Cole, I did it more that way, in which I just let him do what you want. And I regretted that. I think I should have, within a certain amount of reason, and I did this more with Nolan and even more with Kirsten, is really incentivize them towards a direction. Right. Within reason. Not saying you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be a dentist or but incentivize them away from doing what they want to do. Because what I found with my kids is that they don't have a clue what they want to do.
Nobody does.
They're still not old enough. I think it's wrong. They hit 18 and all of a sudden they're adults.
Yeah, you can vote.
They're not even close to adults.
No.
Most of them are not.
Probably about 30.
Probably so.
Yeah. At
least 25. I really think that, that the age ought to be 25 for being an adult.
Yeah. Or older. I'm fine with older.
You're fine with older.
Yeah.
So like with Kirsten, with Nolan, he was a lot more like me. So he was already in the business and he still works for me. And so it's kind of a different situation. With Kirsten, what I did with her is I made it very hard for her not to do what I wanted her to do. So like she lives here at home. I pay her insurance on her car. I gave her the car and paid the insurance on the car. She lives here for free. She has to pay anything in rent or anything like that. But she has to work, and I incentivize her to go to school. She wanted to go to college, but she wanted to move out and go to college. Yeah. And I said, you can do that. Legally, I mean, you're an adult.
Pay your own way,
but I'm not paying for anything.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to pay your rent. I'm not going to pay your dorm. I'm not going to pay your insurance on your car. Nothing.
Yeah.
You're completely on your own.
Yep.
If you can handle it, if you can do it, that's great.
That's the freedom and accountability.
That's right, and I respect it. I'm not doing this to because I think little of you. But you're not going to get to go out there on a dorm and pretend you're your own person.
Right.
If you're going to go do that, it's because you're going to be your own person.
Yeah.
And that's great. And if you can be your own person and do that, you deserve every bit of respect you get.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to let you go out there and pretend to be your own person.
Right.
So if you want to go to college, you want me to help you, you have to live at home. For the first 2 years at least. I said, we'll see after that. But for the first 2 years for sure, you have to live at home, and I will pay for everything. Provided you bring in good grades. So basically, you bring in bad grades, and you pay for the semester.
And you're finding that more successful?
Much more.
And see, I think that has something to do with learning a little bit as you get older, right? You're learning leadership in a sense, because each kid is different, their personality. And let's say there's a story of a general. I really like it. He says, man, I have these 3 regiments that I need to attack Russia or whatever at this time, but I have 3 generals that are all different. And instead of just saying, this is what's going to happen, you're going to do what I tell you, he says, one of my generals is a rule follower. He'll do everything to the letter. That's fine. I have another one who thinks outside the box, and I have another one who's a contrarian. All 3 of these generals, I need them to attack on the same night. So he sends 3 different letters of orders. One has all the details, every detail down. You need to do this, this, this. The other one has much less detail. Let the guy who thinks outside the box figure it out. He'll make his own plans. And then he says to the other one, I really like this place to get attacked on this night, but it's not going to work. He goes, no, we need to attack that night. And for the success of the mission, he had a plan for each type of personality. He understood the people he's in charge of, and he led in a certain way. I think that's probably a good lesson for each
parenting.
Kid. You got to understand who you're in charge of, and you got to understand their personality types, and you got to model your leadership.
Yeah.
Push them, how they need to be pushed or encouraged, or some people need a lot of negative reinforcement. Some people need a lot of positive reinforcement, whatever. But yeah, you can't just say, I'm the boss and you're going to do this or you're going to move out. That might not be the right way.
Yeah, I don't think so. And then they're doing, I wanted them to, I was even with Kirsten, I didn't tell her what she had to study.
Yeah.
I wasn't pushing her to a career, but I did not want her to, I didn't want her to get to be middle-aged and regret that she didn't go to college at a time when she had no reason not to.
Yeah.
I mean, like, community college really is cheap.
Oh, I love community college.
It's so cheap.
I liked it way better than UTSA.
It's so cheap. Yeah. And what are they going to do anyways? It's not like she has a life right now, right? They think they have a life, but they really don't. They don't have 5 kids and they don't have a mortgage. They don't have anything. They can go and they can just go to college.
Yeah. Best time ever.
Yeah, and do it. And so it's like, unless if she would have come up with a compelling reason and she had another plan, I would have got behind that. I wasn't trying to force her to do what I wanted her to do.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to just do what I did with Cole, which was just say, my oldest son, and just say, you're an adult, I'm going to let you make your decisions.
Yeah.
I thought that would be good for him.
Well,
and that was a bad idea.
You could say that the way I did it was a terrible way, because I had nobody pushing me. I had nobody, because my dad wasn't in, he did everything he could. I think they did a great job. I think some parent might say, I regret doing it this way because he took the hard route. But that hard route might lead him to be a much stronger person in his 30s. You know what I mean?
I do.
It could, a lot of good can come from leading that hard life for a while, or going a direction.
The thing is, it's the song Unsung. You don't know the tune to it. So, it's like, what would your life have been had you gone in a different route? Well, yeah, you always will pick the same way you went because you're. It's what you know.
I don't know what would. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're gauging it based on that, but everything's so fluid and dynamic that everything changes when.
Yeah, I wouldn't have changed anything about what I went, how I got here, but I will adjust how I teach my kids according to how I
look at my life back and I think if I could redo it, I would do a lot of things differently. Even though I don't dislike where I'm at.
It's tough for me because let's say I do know people who did everything right, and I feel like they lack a lot of leadership skills. They lack a lot of wisdom in the real world. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're talking about it, but they have no idea what they're talking about. You know what I mean? And
I do.
Those guys annoy me. The guy who stands up and says, if you don't control your family, you better reach back and grab your spine. You've heard that?
No, I haven't. I need to write that one
Preachers.
down.
Preachers will stand up and say, why don't you reach back and grab a hold of your spine and get your family to whatever. It's like, dude, that just tells me you have no idea how to lead. You have no idea how to teach or to influence. You're a manipulative person and you're not an influencer. So it's that time. I wouldn't want to be that guy.
No,
I'm glad I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm a good leader, but I'm definitely trying. I'm practicing. I'm reading. I'm listening. I'm trying to learn. I think most marriages would benefit if both the man and the woman took leadership.
Probably so.
I think everyone would benefit. You would learn how to treat your leader better, and you would learn how to lead better when it's your turn. I don't know.
I think you're right. I have a real difficulty with the way evangelicals teach parenting, especially young parents.
Right.
I don't like the overemphasis on spanking, as if this is going to solve all the problems.
Yeah.
And I know when people hear that, they always get mad. That's not all.
Yeah.
I grew up in it, and maybe that's not what they're technically saying, but that is what is being understood.
Well, I liked when Linda Pemberton was on, and something in her life made all these verses make sense in her 50s or whatever she is, 40s. Everything made more sense after a little life experience. It opened up a truth. I think a lot of people have zero experience and they're talking out of theory.
I do.
In theory.
And with Christianity and with preachers, I think it even gets exacerbated because too many preachers think that because what they're saying in their mind is biblical, which is debatable, but in their mind is biblical,
right?
Then it no longer even has to be true. As strange as that may sound.
Or if it's proven.
Whereas if it's biblical, you just say it. You don't have to actually. They say, well, if the Bible says it, then that's the way it is. It's like, what do you mean by if the Bible says it? What does that mean? Because I can talk to 15 different people. They'll all say that they only believe the Bible and that they don't interpret it.
Yeah.
And yet none of them agree on anything.
Yeah.
So what does it mean if the Bible says it?
Everyone thinks their interpretation is
truth.
the truth. Yeah.
It's not they don't think it's an interpretation.
Yeah, the way
they
it's been
think
revealed to them.
It's just what it says.
Yeah.
It's what's so crazy. I've been going over this, especially in Mexico, with people saying, no, everything you get out of the Bible is an interpretation.
Yeah.
There is no understanding.
Right.
That is not an interpretation. It does not exist.
Well, it's interpreted just through your eyes, your perspective.
Just the moment you read it.
Yeah, it's being filtered.
You are taking an idea that was in someone else's head,
right,
was written down, interpreted to a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And then you're reinterpreting it back into an idea. Right. Now, you tell me, what is the likelihood that your idea in your head is the exact same idea was in his head? Well,
there is some interpretation, yeah.
There is. There has to be. Now, you might end up with the same idea, but it's through layers of interpretation that you get it.
Right.
It's not, the idea isn't transposed into your mind just because you read something.
Well,
that isn't to say that there is an illegitimate interpretation. There absolutely is.
That's one reason to be I'm not very dogmatic on many things.
I'm becoming less so.
Yeah, because even just in your life experience, if you go through something and then something opens up and you now understand compassion and love, and like what Lindo's saying, I love that because you understand something, but you can't look at the people in the 1800s who believed the Bible, but they still had slaves. Because in their life, however they were raised, however their perspective was, they were probably thought they were doing right.
What I say, when I look at them,
I think we should have more compassion on people.
I agree. And that's hard to do when you're having compassion on people who are, doing something so horrible.
Yeah.
Right. But here's where I'm at with this. And I think that a lot of people are there and don't admit it. I think all these cancelers, this is what their problem is. I look at that time and it fills me with fear that I would be them.
Oh, and
I'm like, I'm half of my family's from the South.
True. Yeah.
Right. My dad's from the North, but my mom's from the South.
Yeah.
If I don't even want to look back in my family tree to find out if there's any slaves hanging from it.
You have no idea.
Yeah. I don't want to know. But let's assume that they were part of a slavers. How do I know? I am very, very fearful that I would be on the wrong side of that issue.
Well, and
I think all the cancelers are.
Well, yeah.
I think that's what's wrong with them. I think the reason there's so much rage from this side is that they suspect that they would not have been on the right side of the civil rights. They would not have been on the right side of the. Yeah, they're trying to get onto it.
Well, and what you're saying is true because in a very real way, when you're in a combat zone and you're going in, and you're seeing 11-year-olds come out with AK-47s and you have to shoot them. You see a darkness in yourself that is necessary to fight the darkness. You see what I'm saying? You have access to see an evil, and you could go down a path very easily. There's hatred, and you need it. They train it into you. They train anger and they train hate and get rid of the wimpy emotions, And when you're in a combat
can't go in there sympathizing with them.
No, you have to access a side of yourself. If you're going to win, you got to be ready to
get really dark,
to get your hands dirty, and you train for it. And so I think knowing how low you could go is an important step. In understanding. Which I just wanted to stretch out.
Yeah, no, you got room.
So yeah, if you understand how far, if you were born just in a different neighborhood, you could be a gangster and running drugs. That's
the side. So that's the leftist side. So if you listen to someone like, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, John McWhorty.
No.
Oh, okay. I really like him. He's black professor. He's a linguistic professor, but he does a lot of commentary on social issues. Him and a guy named Glenn Lowry.
Okay.
They're both. They're kind of. I don't know if you heard of like Thomas Sowell.
I know him.
Okay, so Tom Sowell and Larry Elder, Walter Williams.
They're all in a group.
They're on the right side of issues. They're libertarian to Republican side. McWhorty and Lowry are black also, but they're more to the left of the issues. But they all are against this whole idea of systemic oppression or systemic racism, and not that there is no racism, but this isn't the problem.
Systemic.
Yeah, it's not systemic, and it's certainly not the problem in America right now.
And I think what they say is, even if it's systemic, who cares? It doesn't help you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's right. It's not the problem anymore. It's not what's holding people down.
Yeah.
Right? So they're all on that issue, even though they're coming at it from very different sides of the political spectrum, social spectrum. So I really like them. McWherty is extremely well-spoken and articulate and thoughtful.
These guys are all alive?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. McWherty's actually a lot younger. Soul just turned 90.
Yeah, I knew he was old.
Yeah, he just wrote another book. This guy's crazy. I love
his
that
quotes
guy.
are amazing.
Oh,
I love his quotes.
Thomas Sowell is like the greatest intellectual living today, in my opinion. I don't think anyone comes close.
Right.
I like him better than even Williams or Larry Elder. I mean, Thomas Sowell is just, he's a brilliant
You read
man.
a lot more than me.
I do. I read a lot, but I really, really like him. But McWherty's very good, even though he's pro-choice. You think of a traditional leftist liberal, he's all the way. He's all in, right? But he's very good on the whole thing of people need to be responsible for themselves.
Right.
But he's from a much more, what I was getting to is he's from a much more like sympathetic side. So his view is that the reason why there's so much crime in the black community is what they're discussing, is because of the poverty.
Okay.
So then he'll have arguments with Glenn Lowry, who is like, no, it's because of immorality.
Yeah.
And so that's their argument. But see, what you're talking about here is kind of, this is the balance. It's hard.
It's weird,
it's true. People are born without advantages.
Yeah.
They're born without good parents or without parents, without a dad, without a mom, maybe without both. They're raised by the system, or they're raised by a mean uncle or whatever. And so they have all these strikes against them coming out of the box. Starting off. And so you look at that and you go, well, you can't blame this person for where they're at. And that's how they see it. That's their view of it.
But it is a balance.
Yes.
It's nature versus nurture in some way. But even if you're starting off at the worst position, it's still your responsibility.
Well, that's the thing, right? That
might be harder
that we have to differentiate between whether we're blaming them or whether we are observing them, because this is different, right? So if I come to you and you have all these strikes against you, and I say, well, you're in this position because of your fault, you're like, it's not my fault. That would be, I think, the wrong approach. If I come to you and say, regardless of whose fault it is, and regardless of how bad it is, you are a free agent endowed by your Creator with the gifts and the power to overcome it.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't think that the left is understanding, that most of us on the right are saying.
Well, yeah. And
we're not saying that these young black kids that are in gangs aren't terribly disadvantaged.
Right.
Yes, they are. What we're saying is that there is no force in the universe that can fix that except what is in them.
Right.
If it isn't coming from within them, nothing can fix it.
Yeah, and that's the problem. We can't assume that they have bad intentions. They're doing what they think is right by telling everybody that they're a victim, and they think that's helping. What we're saying is, no, we also think they might be a victim, but it doesn't help.
Yes.
It doesn't help. That's why I say, I think my parents did an amazing job, and they let me have freedom at 16, right? I move out, and I was very happy to be responsible for my bad decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll carry that, but it's also who made me. That's how I am. Not that it turned out the greatest, but I am fine being responsible.
Well, see, I think that's the right approach. So as a son, I never think of my life in terms of how I was raised and the bad things.
Right.
I never look at my life and say, well, my life has turned out bad because my dad let me move out when I moved out when I was 16 also.
Right.
My dad let me move. Something was wrong with those missionaries in that generation. Something's wrong with them. That's just not right. Anyways, I'd be like, well, my life turned out bad because of this. No. My life is where it is because of decisions I made.
Right.
I refuse to relinquish to anybody that kind of power. I'm going to give somebody else that kind of power and say that they steered my boat.
Right.
No.
Well, and that's what freedom
Absolutely
is.
not.
If you accept freedom and if you're one of these people flying the flag today, you should also accept all responsibility for what happens to you.
And claim it, not just
ownership.
accept it. You need to claim it.
Yeah, it's ownership. Yeah,
That's
take
right.
it. I am where I am because of me.
That's right.
And I'm fine with it because I like freedom. And if I want freedom, I got to be responsible for my decisions. So, Yeah, the people who are constantly blaming their childhood it's a waste of time.
It is.
You're hurting
gets you
yourself.
nowhere.
Yeah.
And I can look back on my childhood and point out all the things that I think if I were a parent, I would have liked to have done them differently. I would have liked to have raised me differently.
Yeah.
Right? But that's why you have kids. That's your do-over. That's where you get to do the things you wanted to do differently, and you get to try it.
And that's when you stop, especially if you were blaming your dad or mom. Then when you start having kids, you go, okay, it's hard.
It's a lot harder than I thought it was.
I'm deciding things for kids that in 7 or 8 years are going to make their own decisions. That's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure.
And if you do the wrong thing, I did my best,
And what I tell parents is, you need to do the best you can do.
Yeah.
And remember that they, even from the time they're born, are willful, active agents.
Yeah.
Right? They make their own decisions anyway.
Yeah.
And they will make their own life. The idea that everybody has the same amount of gas and is going to reach the same distance from their starting place isn't true. That's what the left thinks. The left thinks, well, these poor ghetto kids, they will never reach where you reach because they started off 100 yards back.
Right.
That doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, quality of outcome doesn't.
No, it's not like everybody has 100 yards in them. Some people are going to go 1,000,000 miles. They're going to start from way back.
It's not even the same
and
race.
surpass everybody. No, it's not a race.
In fact, everyone's on their own race with themselves. That's it. That's the race. You're not in a race with me and you.
That's right.
Or me and this 10 other people. You're in a race against yourself, and that's it.
That's right. You're in a race against your expectations versus your inactivity, your laziness. That's what you're balancing.
Yeah.
You're balancing what you want with what you're willing to do.
Yeah, and that's why focusing on anybody else is a waste of time.
Yes.
Because if you're constantly looking at everybody else, you're going to stand still. But
That's
if you
true.
take exactly what you have, what you were given, and you work with that.
And see, this comes to the difference between the left and the right on issues of poverty and rich. And the left talks about poor people, but they're not talking about the same people as when the right talks about poor people. We're talking the same words, but we're talking about two entirely different people. When the left talk about poor people, they're talking about people who have less than other people.
Oh, yeah, anybody.
It's a relative term.
Or
right?
rich, whoever has more money than me.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Rich is whoever has more, and poor is whoever has less. That's the left when they talk about poor people.
Yeah.
When the right talks about poor people, we're talking about people that are actually starving to death. They're poor people.
Yeah.
Right? If they're actually starving to death, we say, okay, you're a poor person. Everyone else, we say, you're not poor.
Yeah.
Absolutely not poor. So you live in a junky house. That's not poverty.
Well, yeah, it's the ladder. Everyone's on a rung. Except that low people, they can't even get on the ladder. Those are poor.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. They're
not on the bottom rung.
They're going to die, and they're not going to be able to go up. And so those are poor people. They exist.
Yeah.
And it's an intractable problem to solve that. Not that we shouldn't try, but it's very few people.
Yeah.
So I know people who are extremely talented in life with tons of things and have a lot less money than I do. I don't feel bad for them. Not at all. Because that's the life they chose.
Exactly.
And that's a perfectly fine choice. Right. It's not like there's only one choice, and this is the problem with the left view of poverty. They view that life is only about money. That's the only measure by which you can measure anything.
Yeah.
So if you're a person who is extremely talented, very gifted, and all you want to do is you want to stand out on street corners and play your violin for anyone who wants to listen to it, and you don't want any money for it, and you live in this little shack, they're going to victimize you. They're going to say, you're a victim, you're not making money, look at this guy, he's selling Trotskys online, and he's made $160 billion, and you're playing this beautiful art and you got no money. This is wrong. I look at it and say, he has exactly what he wants out of life.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with not wanting
That's right.
riches. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Just like I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to be wealthy. I don't find there to be anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's a different pursuit. I find it funny when Christians, fundamentalist Christians, think that pursuing wealth is somehow evil, as if pursuing laziness isn't.
Well, and it's pursuing wealth instead of something, right? That's when it gets.
Well,
if it's your only pursuit.
But anything we pursue is instead of anything.
There's a list, so something's going to be off the list.
Everything is. If you pursue something with excellence, and I know a little bit about this, if you pursue something with excellence, if you want to be the best toilet partition installer, That is all you think about.
Obsess, yeah.
That is all you do.
Yeah.
18 hours a day, all you do is figure out what's the best way to get a toilet partition panel on the wall.
Right.
And if you're going to pursue programming that way, that's all you're going to do. I was just programming this weekend. I haven't programmed for ages.
You can get in a black hole there.
Last night, I was telling Nolan.
Yeah.
So I programmed for like 40 hours straight practically. I slept for very little. For 3 days, I slept maybe 6 hours total.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, but last night, I'm sitting there trying to go to sleep. I lay down, I'm like, close my eyes.
Seeing code?
No, well, I always see code, but no, all of a sudden I start hearing the radio or like loud music and people talking and like a party.
Huh.
And my neighbor has this fireworks stand.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking, he put up audio. He put up like speakers. It's 2 a.m. But he's like, he got speakers up and he's like blasting this music and they're having a party and I'm all mad. I get up and I go out there to see what's going on. But as soon as I get up, it's like deathly quiet. I can't find the noise. So I lay back down, close my eyes, I start hearing it again. I can't find. I get up again. I go looking. It was all in my head.
Really?
Yes. It's just in my head. I'm just hallucinating. It must be what drugs feel like.
Yeah, sleep deprivation. It's
crazy. I could have sworn. I mean, I went out looking for where that noise was coming from, and there was no noise. It was dead quiet.
Yeah, hallucinogenics.
Yeah. So that's when you know. What used to be when I would program, I always knew it was time to stop when the monitor started levitating. The monitor would like levitate and move, and it's like, okay, time to go to bed.
I did a little bit of programming, and you just lose hours. You look at the clock. Oh no!
Yeah, I know.
It's very yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love doing it.
Yeah.
If I didn't have a family, if I didn't care about the ministry, but it's
very rewarding when it works. When you make it finally work and no bugs, and you're like,
yeah. Yes, it's
beautiful.
Inwardly rewarding.
Yeah.
There's no money in it.
No.
None.
Well,
there isn't.
No.
No. There's no money in it.
Not here in San Antonio, at least.
Not anywhere. India is providing all the programming for companies now. So you're programming against 500 million people or however many people. They have more than that, but let's say only the young men are involved in it. That a 250 million people are programming, and they're doing it for nothing. Right. And you just send them what you want, your specs, and in the morning they send you code, and they just throw people at it, and they pay them, $3 an hour or $2 an hour, whatever it is.
Right.
That's why USAA and all them have quit doing their own coding.
Yeah.
They just supervise this, anthill of workers that are in India doing it.
Because of the global economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just no money in it. The only way to make money nowadays is, and I mean for a normal person,
right,
is you got to do something that you can't outsource. And you got to find somewhere where immigration hasn't entered in, so where immigrants are not prevalent. So like if you go into construction and you want to do sheetrocking, you're going to die of poverty because it's so low paid.
Yeah.
Because any immigrant coming in from Mexico or South America, they can do that.
Yeah.
They're very comfortable with drywall and with drywall and the tape and float and painting. They're very comfortable with it, and they just go in and do it.
Yeah.
You got to find a place where that isn't the case, where it's not like that, which is like what I do. So what I do is well paid. It still is because so few people do it.
Right. It's not a common skill.
Yeah, it's odd. It's odd how so few people get into it. Most people don't even realize that it even exists.
Well, and it's a specialty.
Yeah, if I talk to people like in construction, they say, hey, what do you do? And I tell them, well, I do Division 10. And they're like, well, what's that? Yeah. I mean, it's actually spec'd out in the different divisions of construction is Division 10. And they're like, well, what's Division 10? And you tell them, and they're like, oh, you mean there's people that actually install the toilet partitions?
Yeah.
We just assume that when they think about it, they're like, yeah, I didn't.
They just show up.
I never thought about who actually put that stuff in. Yeah, so it's just very few people do it, and so there's money in it still. But you got to find something
either
like that,
or you got to be better at what you do than. Like sheetrock doesn't work. I stopped doing sheetrock at all because I knew I could find a guy who would do it for $100.
Yeah.
And for my time, I'm going to charge a lot more than that just for my time.
Yeah.
And I'll tell people up front, just find a sheetrock guy. He's going to do a better job, and he'll do it faster. Me, I'd rather do stuff like deck building and that kind of stuff.
You're doing like your deck building. I think that's really good for you because it's not only the technical skill involved in doing it,
right?
But it's the creativity involved.
That's what I like about it.
Right, and so that's
each one is different.
Everything that's creative as far as like what you can get money for by doing the work yourself. You've got to get into something where creativity, ingenuity, where that pays big.
Right. Well, yeah, and there are a lot of. I see bad decks all the time.
Yeah.
And people are calling me, why is this thing? I got this done 3 years ago and it's just done badly.
Yes.
And if I do it right, then there's a big benefit to that.
Correct.
They tell their friends. And you know, so that's the only way I can make money. But I'm not making great money.
Well, no, then that's the thing.
But I do.
You ought to listen to, you may have heard him, Joe Rogan had him on, but Naval, I can never pronounce his last name.
That's an old podcast, right?
Yeah.
He's an inventor or something. What is he?
No, he's just an investor.
An investor.
Yeah.
Okay. I think
he has some really good advice on this stuff. He's not the first one I've heard it, but he does it. He did it real well. That advice he gave, and basically is you're not going to make real money as long as you're doing it by working.
Yeah.
Only by working.
Oh yeah.
You have to get a piece of the business. You have to either own the business, be a partner in the business, have stock in the business, invest in the business. You have to somehow have income coming from investment.
Right.
Because it has to be working when you're not working.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you are restricted to how much you can. No matter how much you make an hour, you can only work so many hours.
Yeah, right. And it totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to get, and that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I understand that. I think I avoid hiring, which is my problem. I'm not a good businessman because I don't want to hire and deal with people.
But you wouldn't need to necessarily do that. You would need to then take money and get it invested in places where it's working for you. Like, like mutual funds is one way, but...
Oh, yeah, I do invest.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. How does that work?
Robinhood?
I've heard of it, but I don't remember now how it works.
It's basically an app, and it's for stocks. It's not for futures. It's not for... But it is for stocks. So I can get on there, and you don't have to buy a full share. So if I want to buy $200 of Tesla, I have 0.25 shares or whatever.
Okay.
And then you just see the graphs. Every day you can check it. You just log in, and you can trade and buy and sell and all that.
And what do they charge? What's their commission?
No commission.
How does that work?
I don't know.
I have to look into that.
Yeah, Robinhood. You know what? I think there's a membership if you want to open up more options.
Okay, so that's
futures and all that stuff. So they get you in on the basic stock trading. But there's no cost to each trade. But there is more features I think you can open up. Me, I'm just happy I want to buy this stock. I bought one called Zscaler right when the economy crashed in March. And it's like tripled in 3 months.
Oh, wow.
It's an internet security, and now everyone's on the internet. But it's fun for me just to watch.
Yeah,
I'm going to
look at that.
I can look at articles in the morning, let's say on the computer, and I can say, I'm interested in this company. Let me go look at their stock, and I can look at the graph over the last 5 years. Or whatever. It's real fun.
I'm going to look at that. I've been doing more traditional, where I just invest like in mutual funds.
Right. Well, no, yeah, this is more fun to me because I get to choose, and if I see one drop in the morning, I can put it for sale right then, get rid of it, and then that later on in the afternoon, I can buy something else with it. So it's actually really cool.
I'm going to look into that. But yeah, we have to get into doing. You have to get your money
working for you. Well, yeah, but in a very practical way, owning a business, there's a very limited amount I can make by myself.
Yeah, well, and then, as far as working, if you're going to do the work yourself.
I'm doing the work. Now, if I want to hire a bunch of guys at $10 or $12 an hour and deal with
a lot of
watching
issues.
them all the time and making sure they're paying attention, because in my experience, people that don't actually have any ownership don't really care about the quality.
No.
They're just there for the day.
No, it's an entirely different situation you're going to have.
Yeah. And I could make more money if I got myself a crew and I could schedule more people, and I just did the accounting and all that.
You won't make more money.
No?
No, you won't until you have to get over a huge hump. You would have to, because you have to make...
It's on a curve, basically?
Yeah.
A certain number of employees do good?
It like bumps up. It's not... It's very, very hard. So the most money I make is the weeks I work. If I actually go to work, I double my income. I double my personal income if I go to the job.
It's Nolan.
My foreman's
2-hour lunches.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, there's
Why do you
factors.
think that is?
There's a couple factors to it. One is that if I go to work now, it's because we have more work, right? So we're doing more work,
Right.
So you have to factor that in.
It's practical, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a matter. Yeah, that's not really a fair judge, because if I don't go to work every day, it's because we don't have enough jobs, and I just want them to make sure they're fully employed.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to go and take away work. So like we went, but then I'm also much more productive than pretty much anyone else. So like they were working at this job in Austin doing toilet partitions. 9 stalls, 2 rooms.
Yeah.
And they did 2 rooms. How long? 2.5 days?
No, just 2 days.
2 days.
Yeah, a day and 3/4.
They did that.
They weren't too full.
It's like a tall high rise, and every floor is exactly alike.
Right.
So they did 1 floor, and it took them 2 days, and it was 3 guys. And then the next floor, it was 3 of them, but 1 of them was me. So it was me, Nolan, and 1 other guy.
Yeah.
And we did the floor in less than a day. In like 7 hours. So like, huge amount of time difference in going. What whole trip up there, that's a lot of cost. I mean, all that adds up.
Yeah.
And so the first time was he had 2 helpers basically,
Yeah.
right? And when it's me and him, we both know exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, I don't think we ever like say 2 words to each other when
We didn't speak the whole day.
The whole day.
He just does what he's doing. I do what I'm doing.
yeah.
We don't have to. Yeah, we don't even have to ask what we need. He look over. I know what he needs.
Yeah.
I mean, goes so fast, but I have to be there. So, and I can only hit. I mean, that's about as fast as I could do them.
Yeah.
That was no problems. We had no issues in the room, no mistakes. Everything went as smoothly as it could go. So that's the best I can do working myself.
Yeah.
And that'll never get me to wealth. I could do that every day.
Yeah.
And I'd be comfortable. I mean,
yeah.
But going back to what we're talking about, I don't have any problem with anyone who says, I just want to be comfortable. Great. That's your choice.
And that's kind of where I'm at. It's some people will say, no, you're not successful if you're not growing. I have about the same amount of sales every year, and I feel like I'm successful enough that I'm feeding all my kids. I have a nice house, and my wife doesn't have to work. That's
so. See,
I'm still looking to improve in other ways, like I'm getting my home inspector license, and hopefully in a couple weeks when I take the test. That's just I want it to be a second option.
You're diversifying what you're doing. That's
right.
good.
And it pays a lot more for less work.
Yeah.
I don't have to be in the sun all day in the summer.
That's exactly right.
But
that's a good idea.
That's trying to open up a different door without, I don't want to deal with 10 employees and deal with all that mess. So
yeah.
So it's not that you just get comfortable and you just want to stay where you're at, status quo. I think it's fine I wanted to get into investing, so I just did a small amount. And since I hold my income taxes aside for the whole year, because why give it to the IRS?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just wasting there. I'm using that money to invest, and then I'll take it back out when it's...
Right.
So I'm actually using my income tax for me until the end of the year.
Right. Going back to what we were saying though is my problem is, see, I have no issue with someone who says, I want to pursue fishing. But how is that any different from someone who says, I want to pursue wealth? I don't get the difference. I don't get why there's such Christian vitriol against someone who says, I have an ambition in life, and my ambition in life is to get wealthy. I want to become wealthy. And then you're like, well, that's terrible. Okay. Then is it terrible to say my ambition in life is to fish? I want to fish every Saturday. That's what I'm going to live to fish. Well, in my opinion, that's just a different form of wealth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or my ambition in life is to live a comfortable life, have a nice house, my wife doesn't work, and I only have to work 7 hours a day. Well, that to me is wealth. It's just calculated. It's not counted with money.
Right.
You're working.
Oh yeah.
You're focusing on a style, on a ability of living, or a class of living that was not available to 99% of the humanity.
Right.
You're extraordinarily wealthy, and you're living for wealth. So it doesn't seem to me that they're very consistent about this.
Well,
I think they demonize people who actually are capable of generating some wealth.
Yeah. Well, and you could pretty much pick any viewpoint and tear it apart. And I could, like, gambling as opposed to going to the movie theater. And
Talk to me about that. Tear that apart.
I don't see a problem with gambling at a casino with your money. If you're going to go spend $100 at a movie theater, if that's entertaining to you, then spend $40 on popcorn. Or if you want to go spend $100 at a casino, I have no problem with you wasting your money either place.
Okay, what about...
It's a waste of money either way.
I actually don't disagree with you. I wish preachers would get off. Southern preachers are on this. Less so, but when I grew up, no gambling, no lottery. Lottery's evil, it's of the devil. To me, this is all just nonsense. I think it's just nonsense. But let me push back on you because I want to hear what you have to say about it. Okay. So the argument is that gambling has certain inherent flaws, certain inherent evils in it.
Envy.
It comes from there. Yeah. It's addictive. Yeah. What else might you say about gambling? It's associated with lower element in society.
Right.
Number of things. So what do you think about that?
If you think that, that's fine.
But do you think it's true?
No. I think if it's true in your mind and you want to believe that, that's fine. But I also think everyone should have responsibility of their own. So if you want to be strong against gambling, I'm fine with it. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I just personally don't think there's anything wrong with it. Especially if you're a responsible person, like someone who's making plenty of money and that's what they want to do twice a year for their entertainment instead of going on a cruise. What is the difference?
Well, I agree.
They're both a waste of money. But if you're with your wife and you're having a good time at a casino and that's how you want to waste your money at a nice hotel, eating $8, all you can eat food in the buffet, do whatever you want.
What hotel are you going to?
I haven't been to one in a long time.
No, it's a lot more than $8.
Is it?
Yeah.
I know when I was stationed in California and we got 4th of July weekend off, we drove to Vegas.
Yeah.
And these nice hotel casinos.
Oh, those hotels. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Although I think that's changing. I think they've it used to be, my dad worked there back a long time ago. Yeah. He framed in Vegas for a short amount of time back 20 years ago or something. 30 years ago, 40, I can't remember, a long time ago. I can't remember how long ago it was. Anyways, a long time ago. And then if you went in, they were basically free. You could just eat for free.
Well, yeah, and they'll comp. I had a friend whose parents would go every year, twice a year, and they were always in the same hotel chain, and he was on a professional bowling, whatever. So he'd go to Vegas all the time, and they were just comping him rooms because you're wasting a lot of money. They're like, come back. And whatever, if you waste your money that way, it's fine with me. Now, if you start having a problem where you can't pay your rent, then I think someone needs to talk to you about gambling.
See, but here's the thing, how I look at it as far as like gambling. I understand that gambling is associated with certain bad... I think everything we do for enjoyment is essentially associated with some bad quality, some bad character in us.
Okay.
And we're mediating that bad character. We are dealing with it because it's not going to go away. So gambling has that. It's, we have this thing of wanting something we got without earning it per se, or getting it by our wits, outsmarting somebody. I guess that's what it would be. I outsmarted you, right? I beat the house. I was smarter than them, and I got this money. It's that high you get from being smarter than whoever lost.
Okay.
And that is a bad character. It's not charitable, right?
Okay.
So it comes from whatever is anti-charity.
Okay.
Whatever is the opposite of charity, that's what that is feeding off of, that in us. But everything else we do feeds off of something.
Well, and that's assuming,
like
because
going and watching a movie.
In your mind, that's how you think of it. I just don't think I can look at someone with their wife or husband or whatever playing a poker game and say, oh, you're trying to get a high off of this. Maybe the guy's just like poker.
Maybe, but then they wouldn't be playing for money. Right, but my point isn't to criminalize or to denigrate. My point is that everything we do for fun is the same thing.
Well, and
when we go to the movies, what are you feeding there? Well, you're feeding something. You like to go there because it feeds something.
Well, yeah. To me, it's like I'm shutting my mind off for about 2 hours.
Right. So then so we're feeding that that desire to not be efficient, right? To not be productive.
Yeah.
which is essentially laziness or sloth. So
Yeah,
you have
at some level, yeah.
we all have these things in us, and I think that what we do as productive human, if you're productive, is you have to find a way to channel that down into a smaller narrow of time and like appease that part of you to a degree. This is why the Puritans were against everything.
Right.
Everything, because they looked at everything you did that wasn't
You could find the bad.
right,
Yeah.
and you could find out why you're doing it, and it always goes back to something that you shouldn't be encouraging.
Right.
Right. Should you encourage the wanting to take advantage of somebody else? Well,
Right.
obviously no. Should you encourage sloth? Should you encourage anger? I mean, what is it everything, all these things we do as entertainment, in a way, go back to those things. And so the Puritans were against everything. They
Right.
couldn't do anything. Didn't work out well for them.
No.
Because it just doesn't, the idea that by not doing them, you are somehow not going to have these issues in you.
Well, it's that same thing. You can't get rid of evil by outward actions.
You're just not going to get rid of evil.
Well, yeah, but you can't take out the racism by tearing down a statue. Just
That's
saying, I'm not going to watch a movie and that's going to make me more pure. You still have that. You still have that
Yeah.
laziness, that little 2-hour laziness that you want to use.
Yeah.
It's still in there.
And you're going to do it somewhere else. I mean,
Right.
let's say you're one of these Puritans like they were, and they're like, we don't do anything but pray, read the Bible, work in the field. I mean, they didn't do anything that was of pleasure.
Sure.
Pleasure was seen as feeding these base instincts.
Right.
So you don't do that. But I can sit there reading the Bible and not be reading the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
Just be completely spaced out, thinking of something that is far, far removed from anything the Bible has to say.
Yeah.
And even completely horrible thoughts.
Yeah.
So just having the Bible and reading it with my eyes does not solve it. I'm going to have that time in which I'm just not able to be productive, and I'm going to space out. I'm going to decompress.
Yeah.
One way or the
Somehow,
other.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like these Christians that grew up and they weren't allowed to play sports. And my dad was that way on Sundays. They couldn't do anything on Sunday. So my dad, when he grew up in Michigan,
Really?
which you wouldn't think that way. You'd think he's from the north, he wouldn't be, but they were very strict.
Really?
And so there was no sports on Sunday. You couldn't play. You couldn't go outside and throw the ball on Sunday. You went to church and you came home and you just sat there. You couldn't do anything. That was all bad.
Yeah.
That day, those were things that were base in and of themselves. And so to do them on the Lord's Day was worse.
Right.
That's how he grew up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, and
hard to understand.
It is hard to understand.
But that's what I'm saying. You can almost attack any viewpoint. The dogmatic ones, I loved a course that I took in college called Everything's an Argument. And you could literally make everything an argument, and I love doing papers on this.
Nothing is settled.
Nothing is settled, because if you're good at arguing, everything is an argument. I argued for steroids in sports. I loved writing papers that she would be like, well, I totally disagree with the concept, but yeah, it's a good argument. Because everything can be an argument, and you can tear down. If someone puts themselves out there and says something out loud in public, it's easy to tear it down somehow.
Oh, yeah.
It's the easiest part.
Yeah, you think, well, I have a great argument, no one can count, but it's not true.
I'm assuming that after this, I'll be talked to by somebody.
Yeah.
But there
You're
is an
assuming
argument.
that anyone's watching first.
I'm hoping nobody is.
Nobody is.
But-
trust me.
But like the gambling, I see no difference between going to a casino or investing in the stock market. That's like gambling. It's almost exactly like gambling. I'm wasting money if I have bad choices.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, my dad made that argument for a long time because he always didn't like the preaching against gambling and stuff. And not only, in churches that you're aware of, but like I said, he was from churches
Well, it's
that were
pretty
very
common.
strict.
A lot of people look very down on it.
Oh, yeah.
And
I understand why.
Yeah.
I look at it and I understand why. I'm like, okay, I get it. I don't do it. I hate doing it.
Yeah.
To me, that's like retarded. And I know you're not supposed to, you can cancel me for that.
Yeah.
Word. I don't care. Cancel my viewer. To me, it's just ridiculous. To me,
Yeah.
I have no problem if you say, hey, we went to Vegas and we gambled away money. I don't care.
Yeah.
You can do anything you want with your money.
Well,
as long as you're not coming then asking me to subsidize your living, right?
Well, yeah.
So I have a problem with anyone who gets welfare gambling. I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't be gambling.
Right.
it's like, I don't agree with that then. But you're providing for yourself, then whatever. However you want to spend your money. And like you say, I don't see any difference from you going and spending $10,000 in Vegas and taking a cruise. Now, I think that you're better off doing a lot less of all of those. I think people spend too much money on entertainment for on average, and that's why they don't have any money.
Well, yeah, and the important part is that you got to give some people space to figure that out.
Yeah, but you also got to give them education
if they want it.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are way too imposing, and that pushes people away.
That is true.
So I don't, like my in-laws or something, if they go to casino, I'm not going to, that's ridiculous.
No,
don't do that,
It's true.
But I think if people are doing things responsibly,
it's
your call, you have the freedom to do it, and you're responsible for yourself. You're accountable.
Yeah, I tend to err on the side of telling people what I think, which I shouldn't do always.
I've just never been that way, I don't think.
Yeah.
Or if I was, I changed. I don't know.
I don't think you've ever been that way. I've always been that way. I'm
not very confrontational either.
I'm very confrontational.
I'm like the opposite of a lot of people.
That's what I'm feeding. See, I get a high out of confrontation.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't even like telling people what to do unless I've had friends come to me and say, look, I have this problem. I need help. I love to help. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I love to help. The guy had cocaine problems, and I really was happy he came.
Mm-hmm.
He thought I could help him. I loved it. But I don't push my opinions.
Yeah.
Unless let's say someone's really hurting themselves and they're in a bad spot.
I don't know. You have to tell me. I'm not very self-aware probably. But I don't think on an individual level I push my opinions on people. Like just generally. Or do I?
I think it goes along with your dogmatic.
You kind of do it without.
You have to separate out my public ministry because that's what I do. I mean, I'm a preacher.
I'm not talking about when you're preaching.
When I'm and away from there, like at work, I don't.
I have people. Let me give you an example.
I have people
you tell me that will come tell my 7-year-old you shouldn't wear those kind of clothes.
Yeah, see, I don't do that
out loud to my kid instead of just coming to me and saying, "Hey, you think you're?"
See, I wouldn't even tell you.
That's what I'm saying.
I wouldn't even go to you and say, "Hey, you're
very comfortable doing that."
You shouldn't let your daughter." I look at a lot of people and I think, especially with the girls, you should not let your daughter dress like that.
Right.
That is not a good thing for her. I don't go and tell them.
Right.
Now
I don't tell anybody about their kids anything.
I don't either.
But some people are very comfortable being that person.
But a lot of people hearing me were going to disagree, but you have to differentiate from what I do from the pulpit.
That's what I'm saying.
Which even from there, I try very hard to not do that anymore.
Well, and there's a lot of people that preach and they're super dogmatic about everything.
Yeah.
But in person, they're the most reasonable. You know what I mean? It's a weird. I don't know.
Odd.
I don't understand that. I don't know how you can. I don't know how you pull it off.
Yeah, people turn into different people when they're preaching.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's almost a persona. When you do it enough, it's weird. You develop a whole vocabulary, a whole way of you develop sentence. When I first moved back from Mexico, it was like impossible for me to preach in English because everything I said, I had a way of saying it. It's like you develop a lingo and you say it. So whenever you think of something, you can just talk about it because you've got all these phrases in your mind and you just put out these phrases.
A lot of that is in our culture because even when I'm working on, say, an open meeting message, it's in our, I don't know, I always grew up with preachers standing up telling us how to fix our problems. How to fix church, how to fix our personal problem. So then when I'm writing an open meeting message, I'm always thinking in my head and I'm trying to get away from it. What can I say that can fix other people? How can I fix them? Because there's a problem. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's a verse somewhere that's going to help them instead of just. Yeah. And I don't know how to get away from that, because it's so built into.
It's built into humanity. That's everybody. It's not just because you've heard it. It's just when you're trying to say, I want to talk about. Everybody wants to say something that's relevant. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just do. It's a natural human thing. You don't want to get up and say something that's not relevant. Now, I'm not saying everyone says relevant things. That's what they wish they were saying.
Yeah.
They wish they were saying something that was relevant because if they know if it's relevant, it's interesting. And then they're like, well, what's relevant is what could help you, because then you're interested in it, because then it's helpful to you, and it's just how you think. And so you tend to, that type is called problem solution style preaching is what they call it. And the big problem with it is you look at the church as a problem. Everything's a problem. And so then church is just in your mind is a problem.
You're coming to get fixed.
You're coming to fix things. It's everything, and every time you think of church, you're only thinking of it as a problem.
Yeah.
That's the drawback of that type of preaching, and it's very hard to get away from. Most people never succeed.
Yeah, it's real hard. I'm like, because it's easier to to pretend you're gonna fix a problem than coming up with something interesting where you're not fixing, you're not being relevant to their personal life, and then them being engaged enough to actually want to listen to you on something that's not personal to them.
Yeah. No, that goes right. It goes what I was about to say, that it comes a lot from also a lack of creativity. Mm-hmm. It's like in everything everybody has talents in different areas.
Right.
And being able to be a good preacher requires a very strong ability of creativity. You have to be able to be very creative to come up with things to say that are going to be very interesting, very useful, very helpful, come across the right way, be at the right time. I mean, all of that, it requires a lot of talent to do it, and not everyone has that. And yet, there's a lot more preachers than there is talent running around.
Yeah, but I don't have the guts to do it, so you know what I mean? A lot of people...
Yeah, I wish more people didn't have the guts to do it.
Yeah.
I know that people that have heard me have thought the same thing.
I realized, yeah.
Oh, man, we're out of time. Hey, I have had a great time catching up with you, and I really appreciate the service you gave us. And there was more things I wanted to ask you about that to get you back on.
Okay.
One quick thing.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me what you think of this, and tell me if I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, then if you tell me I'm wrong, then that'll immediately make me switch. So I keep hearing all the time they're talking about how everyone who's in this military is a hero. Do you subscribe to that idea?
No.
Okay. Well, I don't either.
I don't think nurses are heroes.
I agree.
I don't think HEB employees are heroes. I mean, the hero level, the standard has gone
way down.
Delivery people, they're the real heroes.
I know. It's like, why don't we just give everybody a Medal of Honor, a Congressional Medal of Honor, and just be done with it? To me, look, when you're born, they should just give you one, a Congressional Medal of Honor. Yeah. You're a hero.
I think it's a weird thing, because when people say thank you for your service, it makes me real uncomfortable.
Right.
Because I didn't do it for anybody else. I did it just for me.
Well, I only think people, I've only said that to a few people, and I really mean it when I say it. I don't just mean because they're in the military. To me, that's a job.
Yeah.
They're getting paid.
When
a lot of them are there for benefits. That's right. They volunteered. They're getting paid. They're getting benefits out of it more than I get out of my job by far. I don't get no benefits, right? So they're getting those things. Yeah. But when they actually go to war, like you did, and that to me is something that I'm grateful for, because I've never been in the military. Yeah. I would hate to go to war. It does not interest me at all.
Yeah, and well, it's weird because
anyone willing to do it, I'm thankful for it.
Even when you're over there and people say freedom isn't free, it's kind of hard for me to even say. I mean, in one aspect, we're not even there for American freedom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't owe me anything. I was doing it. You felt good about being over there because you knew that they weren't bringing the fight to the U.S. anymore. There was no more attacks after that for a long time, because we've been over there fighting them in their place.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I kind of get it. But
I look at it more pragmatically.
There are some people that I do consider heroes, like especially guys like Jake. Got his leg blown off, and he's turned that into this huge thing where he's helping people. That's amazing to me. And then there was a guy who just got released from jail, I think, who he saw an Iraqi dude raping a kid, and he went in there and killed him, and then he gets put in prison for it. I think that guy took a big risk, and it hurt him, but he did the right thing. So there are some people doing heroic things out there, but the common average,
yeah, exactly. I just don't. Whenever I hear that, I always bristle at it. I don't generally say it because it's not. I can't fight every fight.
Yeah.
But I've never liked the idea that they're like everyone in a uniform's a hero. I'm like,
they're all protecting. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I'm glad that they're there. And I guess in that way I'm thankful. But I'm thankful that the guy that picks up my trash on Tuesdays, and I'm thankful for the person who bags my groceries. And I'm thankful that people do jobs.
It's in the same way. Done. Yeah, it's in the same way that you, if you're an honorable janitor, that's great.
Yeah, it is, and I'm thankful, but not a hero.
Right, and I'm very proud of people who are honorable in the military and they make it all the way through without messing up, and they did their job well. Man, faithfulness is great, but hero.
Yeah,
but
I think I would say very small.
Maybe back in World War II when we were actually fighting to make sure we don't all speak in German, maybe that is a more heroic thing, but.
Yeah.
Since then, when was the last time we were at risk of getting taken over?
Yeah. So, one argument would be that we're getting taken over by 1,000 paper cuts, right? Instead of a single blow. But my view of it is much more pragmatic. Why I'm thankful for what you did, and those that were in Fallujah and Ramadi and all these different places that actually were doing that and do that, is because even though I probably would not have voted for that war, I'm not going to secede. You know what I'm saying? It's like if someone had to go, and for whatever reason it was my turn, I would go. If I got drafted, I would go, and I don't want to go. And so that people are willing to volunteer, and do that, so there is no draft. I'm very thankful for that, for sure.
Well, yeah, and that's logical, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, and the other thing about like those wars, everyone in retrospect says, "Oh, I can't believe this person voted for the Iraq War." Most of those people never actually know what's happening in the war. Those people over there were very thankful.
Yeah.
And that makes it worth it, where 90% of the people, I'd say, were like, thank you. They loved us. Mm-hmm. We're like heroes to them.
I heard that one of those people named their daughter George Bush, and then whatever their last name is. I don't even know what a Middle Eastern last name sounds like, but Hobby Doobie,
Hassan, or
Hassan Bush, George Bush Hassan, or something. Their daughter,
No, and there was a lot of younger people who, man, they were so thankful. They wanted to watch American television. They wanted to have real music. Which to me, I'm like, you don't really.
Yeah, they're missing. See, that's the problem with, and we're so out of time. But anyway, that's the problem.
I have all day.
Oh, okay. Well, so
I'm a free man.
But that's the problem. That is the problem with how would I put it? That's the problem with all these countries, that they don't understand. It's why they always screw it up.
Well, yeah.
They don't understand what American liberty really was about. No. They think American liberty was about, I get to do anything I want.
Right.
And it isn't. American liberty was about, we are going to make a government that is very limited.
Yeah.
That's what it was about. They don't understand it. They think it means that the government is now going to give us the freedoms they've been denying us. That's what they think it means. That's what Mexico thinks it means.
Yeah.
Your wife is telling you you are done?
She goes,
you're not a free man?
I didn't know you were watching. Well, no.
They don't get it. And so they go out
really
there
don't get it.
And they make a constitution that is exactly the opposite.
Yeah. Well, it's
without realizing
the same problem with all of this. I mean, people who don't understand what's happening in the war are back home making decisions about the war, and they're messing it all up. That's what happened in Vietnam. These people over here were holding the chains on everybody when we could have finished that stupid war, right?
Yes.
Obviously, Vietnam War is very controversial.
No, but
now
you ask yourself, in theory, could America at that time have defeated Vietnam at that time? Just in theory, yes. And if you look at the actual battles that took place, absolutely. Whenever they were unchained and allowed to do battle, they decimated the Viet Cong.
It would have been.
It wasn't even. I mean, you look at that. What was that movie? Mel Gibson movie.
Oh,
We Were Soldiers.
I love that.
We Were Soldiers. Yeah. You go back and you read that story of that battle.
Yeah.
Those few guys, they just completely annihilated them.
Well.
It was just a few of them.
We are so superior ever since World War II. Like the Korean War, if you read about the Chosin Reservoir, and one group of Marines in 30 below zero held off 7 regiments of Chinese. They're losing toes out there. They're losing limbs because of the cold, and they held them all off. because they're just superior fighters and superior gear. It's better training. But yeah, we could. Well, I guess what I'm saying is there's a disconnect. Like you say, over there, from their perspective looking in, they think American freedom is this.
Yeah.
Or in this box. And then from over here, we try to go over there and push this freedom on them. And they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to hold it.
And I think that we're trying to give them is not the right understanding of what it is anyway. We're looking at today and age, almost everyone I talk to is thinking of freedom as what the government allows me to do.
Right.
That's my freedoms. And what rights they give me, meaning what things they're going to give me.
Yeah.
That's what they look
Instead
when
of
they think of freedom
from my government.
That's right. Whereas freedom in the 1769 sense is freedom is that I get to tell the government what they can do, and they can do no more. That's it. That's all they can do.
Yeah.
Everything else is mine. It isn't mine because they allow it to be mine.
Right.
I was born free.
Right.
I wasn't made free.
Yeah.
That is the revelation, the epiphany of the founders.
And it goes with that accountability. If people would realize, I have to be willing to take care of myself to be free, that doesn't seem like freedom. It's counterintuitive. Mm-hmm. Oh, that doesn't sound like freedom, that I have to work a lot to be free. You know what I mean?
I do. And on that, when you look at, like, for instance, the government, when you look at it from the 1769 perspective, the founding of America perspective, you look at it and you say, the government isn't something that absolves me of my responsibility or takes it over. I created the government. Right. We made it. We're responsible for it. It's not responsible for us.
Yeah.
We support it. We pay. We provide money for it to exist like a kid.
Yeah.
And we provide for it. And we support it. We created it.
Right.
And we limit it. And we say, this is what you can do, and this is all you can do, and everything else belongs to the people. Everything else.
Yeah.
And I don't think most Americans understand this.
Not anymore.
No.
I think we're at this swirling point where the government has blown up so big, just by reflection of our society, that very soon it's going to be you can't go back. It's going to be beyond the point of return. How do we go back?
No,
how do we gain back what we've already lost? There's no going back.
Not
unless people take all responsibility again and say, okay, I'm taking care of my family from now on. Get off the welfare system. Get off. Yeah.
Exactly. The only possibility, and it's so remote that it's ridiculous to mention it, but the only possibility is that we are still governed by this document that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And it still spells that out. The legal foundation for real liberty is still there. Nothing has changed.
Right.
We haven't amended it out of the existence. It's all there.
Right.
It's all there.
It's the only thing holding it together is that document.
As close as we can, as close as we are from losing. That's right.
Yeah.
Like, right to bear arms, freedom of speech. If that wasn't written into it,
and they've been trying to chisel those two things away
for a long time.
Yeah.
For a long time. Well, we got to go. Nolan's exhausted. I can always tell when it's time to stop. Then you'll start snoring without the mute switch. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Been a great talk. I'm going to get you in again. This has been a lot of fun.
That sounds good.
Next Saturday at 9 a.m., I am going to have Christine Davis will be here, and we are actually going to continue a little bit of talk about the military. Her son is in the Navy. He's in the Navy. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and career choices for young people. We're going to continue that conversation there. She's done a lot of research on that, and so I'm looking forward to that conversation. That'll be Saturday at 9 a.m. And then we have other guests lined up going on into August. And so for both of you still watching, have a great day, great Independence Day, and remember that you were born free. The government didn't make you free. Have a great day.